Ho, ho, ho! I'm David Scandura.
I'm Justus Birkin.
And today we're here to find out, is Eyes Wide Shut the greatest movie ever made? Merry Christmas! Ho, ho, ho!
Relax. This pot is making you aggressive.
No, it's not the pot, it's you.
Welcome to the greatest movie ever made, the show where we watch a movie and tell you if it's the greatest movie ever made.
Fidelio. Now you have to let me into the podcast because I said the code word.
I'm David Scand, a movie that's so thoroughly entertaining and compelling that while you're watching it, it's the only thing that matters in the world. I'm David Scandura, joined as always by my co-host and guy who knows the second password, Justus Birkin.
There is no second password, motherfucker. Yeah, good prank that they pull on him there, being like, okay, you got the first password, what's the second password? And him being like, I forgot. And then being like, joke's on you, bitch, there is no second password, we made that shit up.
You
Don't you have egg on your face now.
You fucking virgin. There is no second password, literally.
Yeah, just a crowd that loves elaborate goofs. the Illuminati-esque secret society in this movie. It just seems like they love fucking with people.
And fucking people. Like they love pranks and putting, Tom Cruise through this little rigmarole almost as much as they love fucking and sucking.
Yeah, much like, to quote the words of Mitt Romney, a man who probably is at the party in this movie as we speak, they like jokes as well as things that are fun. David, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm currently besieged by animals.
There's a lot of dogs.
There's a lot of dogs in the house. You are hosting an extra dog.
I'm pet sitting my parents' dog, so there's one additional dog. There is I don't know what 50% more dog than usual is how that math would shake out.
Yeah, but I'm good. I had a good Thanksgiving. Cleaned my house today. Squatted 405 for 3 reps.
Nice.
Which is great coming off of a summer of not going to the gym.
Yeah, we both had that summer.
Yeah. It feels good to get some big numbers back up on the board. As far as media recommendations, yearly Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 check-in. Had a great year. Had a great watch.
Still have never seen that movie even one time. But I understand this is a Thanksgiving tradition for you, picked up from the... It's My Brother and Me?
Yeah, it's My Brother and Me and The Worst Idea of All Time have a podcast called Till Death Do Us Part.
Got it.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to watch it every year for the rest of my life. But at least the last few years, it's been a fun tradition.
Yeah, it'd be a fun bit if you did literally do it every year for the rest of your life.
It would be fun. And fuck, what else? I saw Smile 2.
Yeah. How was that?
I thought Smile 2 was better than the first one in basically every way.
I heard that from basically everybody who I know who saw it.
Yeah.
Was like that it was better than the first. And I still have to catch it.
Yeah,
I haven't yet, but
it was like way more violent, a lot bleaker, also a lot more fun.
Nice.
I think the central performance from Naomi Scott was great.
Nice.
The problem is, and Parker Finn, I am speaking directly to you, stop making your fucking horror movies 2 hours long.
Yeah.
No reason for this bitch to be 127 minutes.
Even the first one, which I liked, and I know that that's not necessarily the popular opinion with Smile 1. Like, a lot of people were like, it's kind of shit. And even the people who thought it was fun were like, it's kind of shit, but it's fun. I was like, no, I kind of just genuinely liked that movie. Like, I kind of enjoyed it. But even I was like, you could have shaved fucking 20 minutes off this thing. Yeah. Like, it's way too long.
Yeah, I feel like 2 is almost so good that it renders the first movie obsolete.
Nice.
Like, there's no reason to watch that first movie other than Kyle Gallner, who is great and has an excellent scene in this movie.
Nice.
Which isn't a spoiler because he's on the casting list and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, great time. And I guess he's attached to do a remake of Possession, which
that seems like a bad idea.
Which seems like a terrible idea. But at least his direction in this movie and the way, it seems like he is possibly up to the task.
Yeah.
Like, I am interested to see Parker Finn's interpretation of Possession as much as I think as remaking Possession is a terrible idea.
It's just one of those movies where I'm like, why would you ever remake that?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to be able to do with a remake that the original Possession doesn't do? In some ways, it would be like remaking Eyes Wide Shut. I don't think it would be like a dissimilar kind of fool's errand to take on. In a lot of ways, because this movie is got a lot in common with Possession spiritually.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway,
one other recommendation: I finally listened to "Lives Outgrown" by Beth Gibbons.
Yeah,
what a great fucking album from one of the best musicians to ever make music.
Hell yeah, I haven't listened to it.
Yeah, thought it was fucking awesome.
Nice.
How are you doing? Anything to recommend?
I'm doing pretty good. I had a nice little low-key Thanksgiving and put up my Christmas lights and am in the spirit of the season. Very in keeping with today's film. Yeah, no, I've been good. Just kind of chilling, taking it easy on the little break from work that the holiday is providing, and work's been okay since the last time we recorded too. For me, your recommendations, I know everybody has already listened to it, but GNX by Kendrick Lamar, very good album.
Yeah, it whips.
Really, really fucking good album. So, like, if you're one of the 10 people on the planet who hasn't streamed GNX yet, check it out. This white guy on a movie podcast can be the thing that finally pushes you over the edge to listening to just one of the greatest music artists, one of the greatest artistic minds of his generation, just fucking going ham for 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's really like him taking a victory lap.
Yeah.
And like pissing on Drake's grave. And the graves of all of the other, like the entire rap community for that matter.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
also like uplifting his city and uplifting his coast with bringing on so many like little known West Coast rappers, up and comers,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And also kind of confronting his own sort of inflated ego, right? In a very like self-conscious way at points on the album too, which I really appreciated. Like there is a lot of him doing that victory lap and being like, yeah, I fucking won this year's rap beef because I'm untouchable and nobody's on my level. And then at the same time, he like takes moments to be like, okay, but like, what are the responsibilities that come with the position I have? And also like, do I actually have this much talent, this much status, or am I like deluding myself? Is like sort of a thing that he like wrestles with pretty vocally on that album too. And I'm like, I like that. I like that it is kind of like your standard kind of chest thumping, like I'm the fucking best, everybody look at me thing that you get in rap, right? But at the same time, he's like really, really introspective, which is like a hallmark of his style. It's a thing that he's always been known for. But it's really showing up on this album, and it's very, very fun to listen to.
Yeah, I love how braggadocious and hungry he sounds. Like he has like nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
But it's also like you said, introspective and thoughtful.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate about it, especially because I like his other music. I love his other music. But admittedly, records like To Pimp a Butterfly are not always the thing I'm in the mood to listen to because there's so many layers to pull back with
It's really, really dense. Yeah.
So it's great to hear him do something more straightforward that still has the same care applied to it.
Yeah.
So
anyway, GNX, great album.
Yeah.
I've also been enjoying a couple of Miyazaki films. Hayao Miyazaki. I watched Spirited Away and I watched Kiki's Delivery Service. And I'm just like in the mood to watch more Miyazaki. So that would be my other media recommendation is like either of those movies. Because what a gorgeous filmmaker with such a unique style and unique like emotional pull to his work. And I just, so yes, listen to one of the greatest rappers of all time and watch the movies of one of the greatest animation filmmakers.
Yeah, you're really propping up some underappreciated geniuses.
You know what? I'm allowed to call out mainstream well-known shit in Media Rex. It doesn't have to all be funeral doom bands with 120 Spotify streams. Anyway,
this is Christmas. Yay, Christmas is coming.
Yeah.
We're kicking off the season the only way that I know how, which is talking about a movie that is deeply complex, unsettling, and still a Christmas movie. I think
it is so Christmassy.
Okay, I think this is a Christmas movie.
This is
beyond just Christmas tree and movie.
This is, to me, like, I fully think is X a Christmas movie, not X the movie, but like X as a placeholder. Is whatever movie a Christmas movie? I think that debate is usually asinine and not worth having. However, if you were to step into that territory, I think Eyes Wide Shut, the case against it being a Christmas movie would be almost impossible to make. I think this is firmly a Christmas movie.
Right.
I think it would be easier to argue that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie than that Eyes Wide Shut is not a Christmas movie.
I think Christmas is so integral to the themes of this film.
Yeah.
Which we can get into.
It is,
as we eventually.
In much the same way that, like, with most great works of fiction, the setting is in some way kind of a character or a player in the story. Christmas is a character in Eyes Wide Shut. Like it's like the setting being at Christmas is more important than the setting being New York.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, makes sense because the New York that's presented looks nothing like New York in this movie because they shot it on sound stages in London because Stanley Kubrick was never coming back to the U.S.
Stanley Kubrick is afraid of flying. Was afraid of flying.
Yes, and he was like, I'm in England. I'm just going to die here. I'm never going back. Make New York come to me, motherfucker.
Yeah, he sent crew members, set designers and all of that to New York to not only take photographs, but, like, measure streets and get, like, the locations of, like, mailboxes right. Like, he really put a lot of painstaking detail into recreating New York.
Stanley Kubrick putting in painstaking detail into the production of his films. Color me shocked.
Yeah.
Which, like, this is our first Stanley Kubrick film that we're covering on the podcast. Just, like, generally, because we have some big names on this episode that have not crossed the TGMEM threshold in the past.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the tagline of this film is literally...
It is such a fucking baller. This is a dick swinging tagline.
Yeah. Let me get the order right. It is the tagline of this movie is Cruise, period. Kidman, period. Kubrick, period. That's all you needed to know.
Perfect tagline.
Perfect.
It's the correct tagline for this film because I feel like the movie is the three of them just doing the best work that any of them have done. Maybe with an asterisk by it for Kubrick for me. I haven't seen every one of Kubrick's films, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. But huge contrarian take about to come out of my mouth. Good filmmaker, Eyes Wide Shut, good movie.
This was your first time with it?
Yes, I hadn't seen it before. I'd seen some other Kubrick films, but I was curious what your kind of feelings on Stanley Kubrick are in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do know that 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of your favorite films.
Yes.
But I didn't really know your feelings, your thoughts about the rest of his kind of filmography that you've seen.
I love Kubrick.
Yeah.
He, at a time in my life, I probably would have said he's my favorite filmmaker.
Yeah. Definitely not a bad take to have.
No, and I think he is. I think he's kind of a key step for a lot of cinephiles. Their exploration of film. Kubrick is a pretty big step in that or a pretty big chapter in that story.
Right.
For me, I think the first film of his that I saw was probably 2001.
Yeah.
I watched 2001 in early high school, and I think it is safe to say that I would not be sitting here talking about movies every weekend with my best friend if I had not seen 2001.
Yeah.
Because that was not the first movie that I saw that was, like, not made for babies, I guess. But it was the first time I realized that movies can be more than just entertainment.
Yeah.
More than just shit happening on a screen and laser guns and lightsabers and explosions.
Right.
And that movies can do more than just entertain. Otherwise, why watch a movie? Like, if the purpose of art was to just entertain, the circus would be the highest form of art there is.
Yeah.
But like,
all movies would be Marvel movies, and they never would have had the fall from grace that they have had in recent years.
Right.
If the purpose of art was only to entertain.
right. I think it truly like inspired me and posed questions and got me thinking about life and the human condition and all of that shit, but also about filmmaking itself. Like, it made me want to understand film on an artistic and thematic level, and also on a filmmaking level.
He's one of those guys. We kind of talked about how, when we were talking about Evil Dead 2, we talked about there are movies that kind of show you how to make a movie in just watching them. I feel like a lot of Kubrick's movies read that way to me.
I think 2001 and The Shining for sure.
The Shining is the one I was thinking of,
Yeah.
right? Where you watch that movie and you're like, oh, I get what is happening behind the camera here that is making this work, right? And yeah, I think it similar to you, I feel like I kind of credit him as one of the filmmakers that made me interested in film as a medium, and going from like a casual consumer of film to like more of like having more of an artistic interest in it, right?
Yeah.
And for me, the entry point was the first Kubrick movie I ever saw was Spartacus, because that was a movie that my parents like would rent and put on. I don't remember if they rented it or if we owned it, but Spartacus was one I saw a couple times during my childhood. Famously, he didn't have like full creative control on that. That one was a little bit more of a studio for hire job.
Yeah, I think it's his only like for hire, like true blue for hire movie.
Yeah. And still a good movie. Still would recommend Spartacus. I liked it a lot. But I haven't seen a bunch of Kubrick. Like, I've seen a few, right? I've seen Spartacus. I've seen The Shining. I've seen this movie now once for the show. I hadn't seen it before. And never seen Full Metal Jacket. I've never seen Lolita. I've never seen like a bunch of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's like gaps in there for me.
Yeah, there's gaps for me too. I've seen most of his movies. The ones that I'm missing are his earlier films.
Yeah.
And then I haven't seen Lolita because I've always wanted to read the book first, and I actually I was assigned it for a class, and I never read it for that class.
Yeah.
So it's just like sitting on my shelf, and one day I'll read Lolita and then watch the movie.
Yeah. That'll be a fun time for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Everybody who reads Lolita comes away from it feeling like that was a positive experience that that in no way made them feel gross or bad.
But the big movies from him that I've seen the most are 2001, The Shining, which is another like perfect movie for me, Full Metal Jacket, and Dr. Strangelove. And then I've seen Barry Lyndon a few times. I've seen Spartacus a couple of times. I've seen Paths of Glory like once. Clockwork Orange once.
I have seen that one a couple times.
That was one that I waited to read the book until I watched.
Good movie.
Good book. And then I've seen, this is now my second time watching Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
In less than a year, because I watched this on Christmas Day last year.
Yeah. The only other one that I think we haven't mentioned that I have seen is Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah.
Again, good movie.
There's
this guy, Stanley Kubrick guy. He made some good movies.
Made some good fucking movies.
He was like good at making movies.
And it's watching Eyes Wide Shut. I would say that this is unlike any other Kubrick film, except that basically every Kubrick film is unlike every other one.
Right.
Like very like short career in terms of creative output.
Yeah.
But every film he did had its own unique flavor and tone and stamp on it.
Right.
So we talked about Kubrick.
Yeah.
Let's go down the list.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Thomas Cruise Mapother IV.
So like I might be the American who has seen the fewest Tom Cruise movies. I've never seen a single Mission Impossible movie, so that's a huge gap immediately.
Oh yeah.
Right? And then like I was racking my brain before this record being like, what have I seen Tom Cruise in? And the ones I came up with was now this movie, right? Tropic Thunder, which he's great in.
Oh my God, excellent.
And Interview with a Vampire.
Okay.
Which he's also good in. And I'm like, have I seen him in anything else? Because I've never seen Top Gun. I've never seen, again, any of those Mission Impossible movies. And I was like, I've never seen, even some of his more recent ones, like Edge of Tomorrow. Is that what that movie's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, never
Edge
seen that
Edge
one.
of Tomorrow whips.
I've heard it's really good, but I've just never seen it. I have an interesting relationship with him because I haven't seen very many of his movies. Where like growing up as a kid in the '90s, Tom Cruise was omnipresent in the culture. Like you could not avoid knowing who Tom Cruise was, seeing his face all the time, hearing about him. And he was sort of this like blockbuster movie guy who I was like, yeah, I know who that is, and I have like absolutely no emotional attachment to him because I haven't seen any of his fucking movies.
I mean, he was so pervasive in the 90s that like I loved the Navy and the Air Force and collecting like toy planes.
Yes.
Because of Top Gun.
Yes, the military marketing
Right.
worked.
Right. And I had never even seen Top Gun, but I knew about Top Gun. I knew Tom Cruise. I knew that Tom Cruise flew an F-14 Tomcat in Top Gun.
Yeah.
It had just pervaded the culture so much.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and so that's sort of the relationship I had with him for a while. And I feel like when I saw him in Tropic Thunder, I feel like I didn't even realize that was him because I saw that movie in theaters and I was probably like in high school. And I was just like, oh yeah, funny movie. Like that guy was wacky. And then like later on, I was like, oh yeah, that was Tom Cruise in that. But I think the thing for me that really made me have my own opinion on him was watching Interview with a Vampire for the first time, where I was like, okay, now I have this idea, this cultural idea of what Tom Cruise is that is like created by absorbing secondhand his like action star image without ever having seen any of those movies. And then I'm seeing this movie in which he's like this insane aggro homoerotic vampire in this ridiculous wig. And I was like, okay, this is really fucking working for me. And like that was the first time I got the movie star thing from him because it was really the first time I like saw him on screen, and the magnetism even in that role, which is kind of unconventional for him, quote unquote, right? I was like, there is an undeniable thing about this guy where when he's on screen, you just can't take your eyes off him.
Yeah.
Right?
I think this is not a bold claim to make. I think people have said this before. He's kind of our last movie star.
I would say him and kind of Will Smith, but Will Smith, he's had some rough patches,
sure,
in recent years in terms of like his box office draw and his like kind of superstar status.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're maybe the two guys who can like walk into any studio and be like, I want to make this, and the studio will kind of bend around.
Yeah,
is maybe like they might be the only ones left.
What I think I am fully like on the Tom Cruise is saving movies camp right now.
Yeah.
I love the guy, but I have had kind of a tumultuous relationship with him in the past. Not unlike Nicole Kidman. Hey, just kidding. Sorry, but like,
yeah, when she rescued her kids from the cult that he was a part of.
Yeah.
We love Tom Cruise, the movie star. The
Sure.
Scientology thing is always just the huge footnote that you have to put
right
on anything that he's involved
to
with.
his credit, he just doesn't talk about it anymore, and I
Yeah.
think that was the correct decision.
That's the correct decision. It also like I also just I wonder so much about his like day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And his interactions with the Church of Scientology and like all that shit, where I'm like, because he's not talking about it, I'm like, does he fucking know where Shelley Miscavige is? He might. He's good buddies with fucking David Miscavige, right? They're like homies. I feel like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like to sit down with Tom and be like, hey, not a huge fan of your movies, haven't seen you in very much. What I'm really interested in is what the fuck is going on at the top tiers of that church.
But what I like about Tom Cruise is when Tom Cruise is taking risks.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily mean climbing the Burj Khalifa
Right.
and strapping himself to a plane. I mean taking artistic risks and putting himself in roles where he has to be a lot more vulnerable, and that is sort of playing against his aggro macho movie star image like Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
I wish he had done. I wish he would do more of these, because it's kind of wild that like he worked with Tony Scott, Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, Stanley Kubrick. Like he got Martin Scorsese. He worked with so many of like the greats early in his career.
Yeah.
And that normally doesn't happen, I don't think.
And what you do kind of hear, and how much of this is just Hollywood rumor mill stuff and how much of it is true, I don't know. But you do kind of hear that like one of the reasons that he doesn't do shit like this anymore is kind of in part because of this movie. Because it did sort of freak him out to not have the same level of control over a project that he was used to. And everything that he's done subsequent to Eyes Wide Shut has been something where he has had a much higher degree of control over the ultimate project, right? Like he has like a much larger creative voice and stuff post 1999 than he does before this movie. And like, I don't know, like much can be made of like how much of this is true or not. But like there is sort of like stories about him being like, hey, like Stanley Kubrick is shooting all of these sex scenes with Nicole Kidman, who is my real life wife, who I'm married to, and I'm not allowed to be on set while they're happening or like know what is going on.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and you know, people are like, it fucked him up. And it's like, maybe that's true. And maybe that's why he doesn't take risks like this
I mean, this was, I think this still holds the Guinness World Record for the longest continuous film shoot ever.
Yeah.
Which is like 400 straight days of filming.
Yeah. It was like a fucking year and a half.
Yeah.
that they were in England filming this.
And Kubrick was also working on developing AI at the same time, which he then passed on to Spielberg. But yeah, and like Cruise and Kidman were married at the time. They admitted that, and I don't want to get into like the ins and outs of their marriage or anything like that, but they admitted that like this is a pretty intense film, that, you know, it put a strain on their relationship from time to time.
I was looking into it a little bit ahead of this episode, and Nicole Kidman has been quoted basically being like, you know, it was like fine and normal, and like in retrospect, was that maybe not great for our marriage? Like maybe, but at the time it didn't really like feel that way.
Yeah.
Right? Like they had ups and downs during the filming of the movie, but like it's an 18-month period. Like they were going to have ups and downs in a year and a half as a couple anyway. You know? So how much this movie like did or didn't like harm their relationship is sort of like kind of unknowable to anybody but them, right? But at the same time, like when you watch the movie, it's not hard to see how like if they were already going to get divorced in like a couple of years anyway, how maybe like being in this movie didn't necessarily help.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think they both had a really good working relationship with Kubrick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, by that same token, much has been speculated about the toll that this film took on Kubrick, because he delivered the final cut to Warner Brothers,
and then immediately fucking croaked.
And then was just like, I'm gonna peace out and have a heart attack and die 6 days later.
Yes, it is. It's like suspicious timing for it to be anything other than the movie killing him.
Yeah. It's like his Black Star,
right?
or his In Utero,
his 10th Symphony, right? Beethoven was writing the 10th one when he died.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I figured I should do a classical music reference, considering we're talking about Eyes Wide Shut. This movie's full of classical music, and it's very well deployed.
And as far as Nicole Kidman,
she's
great in this movie. I don't have a ton of experience with her as an actress. Like I know she is a movie star. I've been aware of her forever. But as far as off the top of my head, Nicole Kidman films that I've seen, I don't know that I could list that many, other than one that we're actually going to be talking about later this month. She might be our first repeat in like a month, like in this short span of time, repeat guest on the show.
Yeah.
Or featured actress on the show. But she's great in this. And that's about all that I can add.
Can you imagine if we got Nicole Kidman as a guest on this show? Yeah. am in a similar spot with her where I'm kind of in a similar spot with her and Tom Cruise, where it's like, I knew she was a movie star. I was aware of her. And then it was like a really long time before I saw any of her movies. That being said, like, I have seen more Nicole Kidman movies in recent years than I had ever seen, like, during the actual 90s and early aughts. And I've liked her in everything I've seen her in. I especially like when Nicole Kidman gets a gun in movies. I have discovered this.
Oh, okay.
I like Nicole Kidman with a gun. It was a shame to me that she never got a gun in Eyes Wide Shut. Just something about that enormously tall, rail-thin Australian woman with her piercing eyes and, like, weird skeletal limbs and holding a huge gun. There's just something about it that is, like, very, like, primally satisfying to me.
Especially in one of the scenes in this movie, any of the scenes in this movie where she's, like, wearing, a very, very thin shirt that her nipples are just poking out of, and she's got, like, panties on, and that's it.
I wish that she had pointed a gun at Tom Cruise in that outfit.
Yeah. Yeah. While she's fucking berating him.
Yeah. I mean, there's something of a verbal gun that she's holding to his head for a lot of this movie.
And she speaks so slowly.
Okay.
In this.
So,
motion picture.
Full disclosure, when I watched...
Directed. Continue.
Are you done?
I'm done.
When I watched this movie for the show, I was high as balls on cannabis. And I was like, oh, she's talking normal. Because I was noticing how slow it was, and then I was like, no, it makes complete sense to my brain right now. And I also think that maybe got me on her side for the entirety of the movie, because I was like, she's on my fucking wavelength right now. This guy is being a fucking buzzkill. I was like, just fucking chill out, man. You're so tense. But yeah, she does. It's good high acting.
Yeah.
Because they smoke a big joint, and that's when she talks the slowest. And I was watching it like fucking high as shit, and I was like, yeah, like I get you right now. Like, he just needs to chill out and let you pour your soul out to him. And then if he's like a husband worth his salt, he'll be like, okay, if this is something that turns you on, let's figure out how to do it. We can dive into some role play stuff. I can pretend to be a sailor. I can buy a uniform, come home with a fake beard on, be like, hey, miss, is your husband home? And you can be like, no, he's out for the night, right? We can figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I think he is into it.
Yeah.
Because the opening scene of this film
Yeah.
is at this lavish party.
Well, the opening shot of this movie is Nicole Kidman's bare ass.
Yeah.
And then title card, Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
Which is like a really, really good opening for this movie, where it's just like Nicole Kidman's back, she takes her dress off, it's her bare ass, and then it's just title card, Eyes Wide Shut.
Also, Warner Brothers Presents at the beginning of this movie threw me for a fucking loop. Can you imagine David Zaslav's Warner Brothers funding this fucking movie today?
Absolutely not. Especially because it didn't do, like, very well.
No, it's his highest earning film in terms of box office, but it was still a bit of a box office disappointment.
Yeah. And, like, no Oscar attention for this.
Yeah.
Which is sort of insane, considering...
I don't know, 99 was a pretty stacked year.
It was, yeah, that's true. It is, like, the year of American cinema, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
But the movie has this Christmas party where they are both kind of off flirting with other people and aware of what the other one's doing.
Yes.
And they're sort of getting off on it.
Right. It's a little bit like this movie has a lot in common with a previous movie that we've covered on the show, Crash, where the sort of the push-pull of these people's relationship is like they are trying to convince themselves or like perform that they are like a normal middle class American wholesome couple, and really these are two fucking deviant freaks. Right, who are like sort of like how much how much do I hide this side of myself from my partner? How much do I expose it to them? Like, they're playing with the lines in their relationship.
They're sort of flirting with the idea of being swingers.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And I think part of it, and this is like such a big idea in this movie, and I hate to dive into it so early, but like, I think part of it is, for both of them, it is not actually a thing that I don't think either of them actually want to cheat on each other.
no,
right?
I don't think so.
I think both of them have fantasies about being with other people, right? And the thing that is like kind of the conflict in their relationship is just that neither of them, like Bill won't open up about his fantasies. He's like keeping them in, right? And then he feels threatened by her sharing her fantasies, right? And it's like, neither of you actually want to go fuck other people. You just need to like get freaky with each other.
Right.
Is kind of the thing, which is sort of like, not to spoil the ending of the movie, but that's kind of what the last line of the movie is about, right? It's kind of like, no, like, you don't need to go looking for this somewhere else. You just need to be vulnerable enough with this person who you're with to like let yourself be a deviant little freak with them.
Yeah. I guess because we opened the floodgates, I might as well comment on it now rather than waiting until later, because I might forget. This movie was marketed kind of as an erotic thriller,
right?
And I don't think it's not an erotic thriller, but there's more going on here.
Yeah.
But in terms of the eroticism in this movie, there's kind of a spectrum where the fantasy or the fantasy that she has with the naval officer that Tom Cruise keeps like thinking about and fixating on, is very over the top and pornographic.
Yeah.
The sex in the orgy is like almost detached and inhuman and impersonal
and sort of like more performative than it is like carnally satisfying. It seems like there's very pointed, and it's Kubrick, so he doesn't put anything in this fucking frame by accident. There are very pointed depictions of like someone performing cunnilingus with a mask on, right? There's like a dude who is between a woman's legs, like supposed to be like eating her out, but he's wearing a plaster mask over his face, so he's not doing anything. It's like fully performative. Like there's not even a sex act actually happening. It's all about like the appearance of deviance.
And even
right?
even the voyeuristic elements of like, there's people just like fucking on a table in the middle of a room, or in some cases, a guy that is a table.
I think that the guy who is bent over on all fours while a woman is laying on his back getting plowed at that orgy is the guy who nuts the hardest the entire
I think he's
evening.
the happiest dude.
That's his thing. He's like, I'm keeping my clothes on the entire time. You're not going to catch me naked ballroom dancing. I'm not fucking any of these ladies. I just want to be on all fours and have someone get railed on my back. And he's like, yeah.
but these deviant sex acts are taking place in rooms full of clothed, masked people who are not. They're not jerking off. They're not getting off themselves.
They're just kind of watching.
They're just kind of watching with this like cold, and the masks are part of it. This like cold detachment.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the most erotic, sexy scene in this movie is after the party when Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman start having sex in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like they're both looking for these other things, but what they're looking for they already have.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think up there for me in terms of like the hottest this movie gets is also kind of weirdly when Marion puts the moves on Bill, because it's such a moment of like full, just total emotional vulnerability where like a dead man is in the room, like her dead father is right there and all of the walls are down. And she's just like, I am in love with you, right? And his response to it he doesn't really engage with it, right?
Yeah.
But her performance, and I think the actress is so fucking good in that scene. But like that is also kind of one of the moments of this movie where I was like, this is like weirdly very hot in a way, because all pretense of like, this is how I should behave has been thrown out the window, you know? And that's kind of what, at least to me, that's kind of what is hot in this movie, is when people are just being authentic and being real, you know?
And the thing I think for Tom Cruise's character is he doesn't want to have sex handed to him.
Yeah.
I think he wants to achieve it.
Yes.
He wants to earn it.
Yes. Which is like a thing in this movie where you start realizing it pretty early, and then it gets to a level where it becomes parody of itself almost, where every single person that Tom Cruise interacts with in this movie immediately wants to fuck the shit out of him. Like, and it becomes a thing so much by the time like the Alan Cumming scene rolls around.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, everybody wants to fucking suck this guy's dick. Like, every single person he interacts with is like, hello. And he starts noticing it. He like, as a character in the script, becomes self-aware in the Sally scene, right? Where he's like, maybe I can just fuck anyone I want in this movie. and it's awesome because it's like, it is antithetical to his character. What he wants is like, I want people to desire me with kind of the same like ferocity and intensity that I desire them, right? Is sort of kind of what I think his deal is, right? And then he's like put off by Nicole Kidman being like, well, I have this ferocity of desire, but it's like not directed at you, right? Like I have like these sexual urges, and instead of like them being placed on you, I'm like looking askance at somebody else, right? And it fucking breaks his world, right. You know? But yeah.
It's interesting because in this opening party scene where he's with these two there's two models, I think they say they are.
Yeah. Which is a very funny line when he delivers it, because like later when him and Nicole Kidman are talking about this party, she's like, who were those women that you were talking to? And he was like, they were nobody. They were just a couple of models. It's like, okay, all right, buddy, keep digging that hole.
But he is walking around this party with these models hanging off either arm like he's Bruce fucking Wayne or something.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's kind of oblivious to the fact that they want to fuck his brains out.
Yeah, and he sort of starts catching on, and he's like, wait, so like, where are we going though? And they're like, don't worry about it. We're going to where the rainbow ends. And he's like, but where is that? Because he's finally catching on. He's like, oh, these girls are going to tag team me while my wife's in the other room dancing with a rich Hungarian.
Yeah. This Hungarian guy, by the way, This guy has a blue check and a podcast.
This guy has a basement full of women's bodies. This man is giving like full on. This guy has been on the Lolita Express. He has been to the Epstein Island.
Yeah.
He's definitely one of the guys in those masks at that party.
For
sure.
I kind of think everyone at this opening party is in those masks.
Yeah, probably.
That's sort of my headcanon for the movie.
I kind of think that's true because it's sort of even alluded to by the movie, because there is the thing where Nicole Kidman asks Tom Cruise, like, do you know anybody at this party? And he says, not a soul, right? These are all people that he's never fucking seen before. So I do think that they maybe are all like these elites who are filling out the orgy party later. They're in town for the orgy. There's like the pre-orgy regular party the night before.
The pre-orgy social.
Right. We all go hang out at that. There's going to be a couple of normies there, so everybody just act regular. But yeah. And so at this party, Tom Cruise like barely avoids getting blown by two models. And Nicole Kidman is dancing with this Hungarian serial killer. who is very handsome in his own way. He's much taller than Tom Cruise. I'll give him that. She's pretty charmed by him. She's also pretty tipsy. And at one point he's
talking a lot of women be like and men be like, which is
Yes.
kind of a part of this movie that doesn't sit really well with me.
See,
But like,
yeah.
I think the depiction of the characters is pretty. Like, I think you're right. Like, I think I'm on Nicole Kidman's side for this movie.
So like, yeah. So there is some stuff in this movie that is kind of gender essentialist. Men be like, women be like shit. I sort of think Kubrick is doing the work though.
Yeah.
To make that a viewpoint that is depicted in the movie but is not endorsed by the movie, right? Because like this Hungarian guy and also Tom Cruise at points is like Tom Cruise really blatantly is like, women don't have sexual desires the same way men do. Like that's a thing he says to Nicole Kidman later in the movie. And it's like the movie, I think, does the legwork to correct that. And then even later when you're at the orgy and like all the women are fully nude and all the men are clothed, and it's like this feels like kind of male gazy and gross, and like we're just objectifying these women's bodies and the men get to retain their anonymity. It's like, yeah, but like that's the point, because these people are evil rich misogynists. You know, like this is an evil secret society that of deviants who murder people and cover it up.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, yeah, I kind of think the misogyny that is depicted in this movie is not necessarily, again, like endorsed by the movie. I think the movie is doing its job to like point a finger at that and be like, this is wrong. You know?
I would agree. I think it maybe works the least for me in this opening scene with the Hungarian men's rights activist. when Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman are arguing later,
Yeah.
I think that's much better, mostly because I think it's like just a really good acting showcase for the both of them in this film.
Mm-hmm.
But I sort of like it when the film gets away from that and becomes much more strange and atmospheric.
Yeah.
And explores themes visually in these longer, more drawn out sequences with less dialogue.
Yeah. I do like Kidman breaking off her little dance sesh with the Hungarian guy though, and him being like, no, you can stay. Like, you deserve a guy who's gonna like pay attention to you the way that you should be paid attention to, baby. And she's like, no, I'm leaving. And he's like, you don't have to do that. And she's like, yes, I do. Not because not because my husband would be mad, but because I am telling you this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Right? She's like asserting her agency with him there, and I appreciate that little moment.
I think this movie is about two people who are deeply in love but also have shit to work out.
Yeah.
Like, I think they do genuinely love each other.
I think so too. Yeah.
And I guess while we're still on this opening scene, Christmas lights all over this fucking movie.
Yeah.
And it is so essential to this film.
Yeah.
It is like the dark corruption of this cheery, family-friendly holiday. And a lot of this was shot with just using the lights on set. So the everything there wasn't a lot of additional lighting
Like
added.
Barry Lyndon.
Like Barry Lyndon is. And I love how he just lets the Christmas lights blow out and kind of wash over the scene.
It's so good. The way that they shot and then like treated the film or whatever to get this effect with the Christmas lights is visually stunning. Wow, what a, again, novel take about a film that Stanley Kubrick directed. But it's like, this movie is the only other time I've seen Christmas lights look like this on film is in Black Christmas.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And it's so good. It is so iconic. Like, anytime, basically every single room that anyone enters in this movie has a Christmas tree in it.
Except for the orgy.
Yes.
I think it's very important that there's nothing at the orgy.
Yes. Yeah. But basically everywhere else has like a Christmas tree. And every single time it's like, it pulls your focus right when the characters enter the room, because you're like, wow, look at that. That looks amazing. And then it like fades seamlessly into the background because the lights are out of focus and blurry and kind of bleeding into the shot. And it's just like, it's so fucking masterfully executed every time it happens. It was like driving me insane on my couch where I was just like, this is such a simple thing, and it is so integral to the movie working. And they fucking nailed it. The lighting in this movie is incredible.
Yeah, and the blue lighting of the night kind of like creeping into the interiors in this film.
When Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise are having their high argument, and she's standing in the doorway, and there's the warm light of the like bedroom that they're in, and then she's standing in the doorway, and I think it's like the doorway to the bathroom, and the bathroom has the lights off, so it's only that blue light coming through the window. So she's just like standing silhouetted in this like blue, like deep blue, kind of giving like day for night wash. You know, I was just like, man, what fucking color in this movie. It's just, it looks so fucking good. It looks so good that it makes me a little mad because you don't see movies look this good all the time. And I'm like, if they could do this in 1999, there's no reason we shouldn't be seeing more of this. It looks incredible.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it does an excellent job of setting up this movie's like hazy, dreamlike atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I think even like the insane Greenwich Village set they built, when you realize that it's a set, it sort of contributes to that too.
It's literally this is the first time anyone in history has compared these two movies. It's literally like the Hellraiser 2 thing, where they use the same hallway but shoot it from different angles. They do that with the street in this movie.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's supposed to be in a totally different part of the city, but it's the same street set you've already seen, just shot from a different angle, and they like redress the shops or whatever. And it does give you the same feeling that it does in Hellraiser 2, where it's like this is a dreamlike, nonsensical world that we don't really like understand the logic of.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Just done with the budget of someone like a Stanley Kubrick.
Right. What if Stanley Kubrick made Hellraiser 2?
Just Arlie Ermy comes out as Pinhead. We have such sights to show you, ladies!
Movie looks good.
Movie looks good.
Good looking movie.
Good job, Stanley. You made a good looking movie.
Good job making a movie that looks good. Yeah, so they're at this, the only other like important things that happen at this party, one we can mention briefly, and then one we'll have to spend some time on. He does reconnect with an old college buddy who's playing the piano at this party, Nick Nightingale, which is a fucking rad name.
That's
really good character.
That's
name.
a David Lynch or Stan Lee fucking character name.
There's a lot of Lynch.
There's a lot of Lynch in this movie. Yeah. I think it's fair to say that.
Yeah. Nick Nightingale. First of all, this guy rocks.
Played by Todd Field, director of Tar.
Yes. Guy who's mostly known, for his directing career.
Yeah.
And he's just in this movie and fucking awesome in it. I think he's great in this movie.
Yeah, I think he's cool.
But yeah, so they chat a little bit, and Nick Nightingale's like, "Hey, I play at this jazz club. You should come by." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll definitely do that." And then the other main thing that happens at this party is like, so when Tom Cruise is heroically saved from getting his rocks off with two models, it is because the guy who's hosting this party, whose name is Victor, right? The character's name is Victor.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He calls Tom Cruise, Bill Harford is the character. He calls him up because he's like, "Hey, you're a doctor. I got a situation that needs some doctoring." And Bill shows up in this rich guy's bathroom. First of all, this bathroom is fucking insane.
Oh yeah,
there is a completely clear glass shower that is in the center of this giant bathroom, and there is a lounge chair, a full-on desk with like drawers and a desk chair and like a desk lamp right next to a toilet and a bidet, which is like, imagine taking a shit and there to your left there is like a mahogany desk like and in front of you is like a chaise longue,
and there's
like,
there's a fireplace. It's like the new let's go hang out in the bathroom.
This man is so rich that he should be put against the wall. he is immorally rich, which is part of the point of the movie, right? But like this bathroom is fucking bananas. And then on this like lounge chair in this guy on this velour lounge chair in this man's bathroom is a woman who is like fucking fully like passed out on drugs.
Yeah.
And so Victor is played by Sidney Pollack, who is indispensable in this movie. He to me is like one of the things in this movie where I'm like, if you got rid of him and replaced him with somebody else, I think the entire movie is way worse.
I think you're completely correct.
He's so fucking good. Welcome back to the show, Sidney
Welcome
Pollack.
back to the show, Sydney.
Last scene in Tootsie, a movie that he also directed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was my introduction to Sidney Pollack, I think.
Yeah.
Or at least the first movie I can think of where I realized that was Sidney Pollack.
He's so fucking good.
He's so good in this film.
'Cause
Also,
he's like-
also the pants, suspenders, no shirt combo.
Yeah.
Wild.
The really upsetting thing to me in this scene, because the scene is upsetting. So like Sidney Pollack is like, hey, like she fucking OD'd on like a speedball or whatever the kids are calling them these days. It's heroin and cocaine. Like, can you bring her back or whatever? And then like partway through the scene, like Tom Cruise asks like, how long has she been like this? And he says 5 or 6 minutes. When Tom Cruise came to the door, we saw Sidney Pollack put his pants on, right? So if she's been like that 5 or 6 minutes, why was your fucking dick out for the 5 or 6 minutes that she was like this is sort of the question.
Right.
And it's kind of the question that you can see Tom Cruise, like you can kind of see the wheels turning in his head where he's like, this situation is like really not okay. But I like can't say it's not okay because this guy is like super rich. I'm at his house. Like I feel honored to even be here. I'm in the presence of this great man, you know? And it's like I have to like pretend that this is normal, even though it's like very not normal. You know, it's like very, very fucked up shit. And he just has to kind of like coast through it because he wants to be Sidney Pollack.
Yeah, I mean
the thing.
He's kind of the low man on the social ladder of the upper class.
Yeah, because he's like this doctor that's doing house calls to these super rich people. So like they like him and they appreciate him and shit, but he is not on their level.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's sort of part of his arc in this movie is wanting to get into the club, and realizing along the way that he's not meant to be there.
Right. Yeah. That it's like not a place for someone with like a soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sidney Pollack, I think is so key to this film because he is a truly, truly dark, mysterious character with such a pleasant, warm exterior.
Yeah. That's really the magic of him in this, is that he is simultaneously you implicitly trust him because he seems implicitly trustworthy, and also you are terrified of him
to the point where that climactic scene in the pool in the billiards room in his house, I sort of take his word for it.
Yeah,
like I sort of trust him.
That's right. He kind of gets you, the viewer, right, with his explanations, which if you interrogate them, you're like, it's bullshit. Right? He's like, oh yeah, that girl who said that she was gonna fucking redeem you at the crazy masked orgy. Yeah, she just coincidentally died of a drug overdose the next day. Like shit happens, right? And it's like if you think about that intellectually, you're like, absolutely no way. That is a fucking bold-faced lie. But the way he says it, you're like, no, yeah, it makes sense, right?
But
like,
I mean,
I believe him.
I don't think it's that black and white though, because
Yeah.
I think the scene we're introduced to her, she is passed out because of ODing on something.
I think also
and it is like
a notable thing that the movie does where the body in the morgue is not the same actress. It's like a different person, which like the movie tells you pretty explicitly that the woman who he treats for this overdose in the bathroom is the lady in the morgue later. Like textually that's in the script. And then like Kubrick is doing his thing where he's like, I'm going to make you interpret this however you want. So he swaps out the actress and it's a different lady on that slab. And like, you're like, oh, I think I remember this woman, but she doesn't actually look the same. which is just
Yeah.
a fun thing that he does. But yeah.
Yeah, he's really into. I think this movie, maybe more so than his others, about asking questions and then giving you and giving the character, Tom Cruise, answers. But those answers only lead to more questions.
Right. They like don't fully add up. Nothing in this movie fully adds up if you really think about it, and that's like the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's treating this woman, she is like, fully just like zooted out on all these drugs. And he eventually gets her to a point where she's like responsive. And I like I like Sydney Pollack being like annoyed that she's gonna require additional care. Like he was basically like looking for like a magic solution where she just gets up and walks out of here. And then like Bill's like, no, you're gonna have to like keep her here for like an hour and like check on her and make sure that she's like still lucid, and then you'll have to like send her home in a cab or something. And Sydney Pollack is like, fucking fine, I guess so, like sure. Right? Because it's almost like it would have been easier for him if she had just died, is kind of the vibe that he's giving off, right? Where it's kind of an inconvenience that she survived this overdose, is sort of like the vibe that he's giving off without being overtly sinister about it. He just kind of seems like annoyed that he has to care for someone, which I think is pointed, especially before you know his involvement in like all the other shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the party scene, they have sex. We see like a day in their lives.
Yes.
He's a doctor. Notably, a doctor working with women.
We see a couple male patients as well.
Yeah.
But there is the very pointed one where he's like, there's like a woman with immaculate breasts who he is like.
There are so many.
Yeah.
Immaculate boobies in this movie.
It
is a feast for the eyes.
It is sort of in some ways a point of the movie that there are just so many of the greatest racks you've ever seen in your life.
Oh my god.
in the movie. We would be remiss if we didn't.
So this is the unrated version.
Yeah.
I think the most widely available version is the unrated version.
Yeah. Where you get like lots and lots of full frontal female nudity
and sex acts. Like there's an extended sequence of Tom Cruise walking through the orgy and seeing all of these different sex acts.
Yeah.
No dicks flopping around in this movie.
Okay.
Where are my dicks, Stanley?
You and I are on exactly the same wavelength about this movie, because that is literally one of my notes about this movie is where are all the cocks? And I kind of get that that's like, again, sort of part of the point with the orgy is that you don't see any of the dicks because you're experiencing this very male gaze, like masculo-centric. I just maybe coined that word. But you know what I mean.
Check out the big brain on Justus.
I've had 2 beers and I'm making up words. Call me William Shakespeare. But it's very male centric, right? The sort of experience of the orgy, right? Where the women are objects to be used, and it's really all about the men, these rich and powerful men, is sort of the thing. So I can sort of understand the decision to not show any cock in the orgy scene because of that thing. That being said, I'm like, we could have at least seen that sailor's cock in fucking Tom Cruise's little nightmares about this sailor fucking his wife. It's like, we should have seen someone's dick in this movie.
Someone's dick. It doesn't need to be a hard dick. I know that, like, that's...
It's the gold standard.
I feel like...
The gold standard is an erect penis.
I mean, I want... that's... I know that's very hard to get past the ratings board.
Heyo. Very hard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I know. It's so fucked up how ratings boards are like a lot more strict when it comes to male nudity.
Yeah, and I mean ultimately it's just because of it's a patriarchal institution film, right? And it's like you got all these fucking cigar puffing perverts who like control all this shit, being like, no, I want to look at tits and ass. I don't want to see a fucking hard dick. Get that out of here, you know?
But even seeing one of these like skinny, pasty white guys at the fucking orgy with a dick flopping around, that'd be fun.
We do see some male ass in the naked ballroom dancing at the orgy, but I wish we were seeing some cocks. What I really wish is that they had made good on their threat to make Tom Cruise strip, and that we saw Tom Cruise's cock in this movie. That would have been, I feel like, moment for it is when they're like, take off all your clothes at the orgy, is if he had just actually done it, and then we just saw his cock.
I think the orgy scene is the best scene in the movie, and the only thing that could make that better is seeing Tom Cruise's dick.
Yeah.
Whether it's his real dick or a prosthetic dick, I don't care. Just let me see a cock.
We just got to get some cock in this movie. There's not enough. There's not enough in that there is zero. Yeah. There's not even, you don't even see balls. You don't even see taint. Come on, guys. But yeah, anyway. We see a day in the life of the Hartford family. And we do here pretty early on see them being like pretty good parents to their kid, which I also think is kind of an important thing in this movie, is that they are normal. Both of them have these sort of fantasies, these sexual desires that would be considered abnormal or immoral or deviant by some people, right? And it's like, despite them having these desires, both of them are like good, responsible, kind parents to their daughter, which I also think is like, it's important, right? That it's like, no, yeah, they're not, these people aren't like freaks. They're regular people who like want some freaky shit.
Yeah.
You know?
And they start initiating sex later that night. This is when Nicole Kidman starts smoking on the weed. This pot is making you aggressive.
It's not the pot. It's you. I love the line, this pot is making you aggressive. It's very funny.
So they start fighting because they're talking about the each other's partners that they had the other night. And he gets very like, he gets really into the fact that she was talking to this guy and she feels objectified by that.
And
it's like,
right. And she's like, you were talking to those two models, right? And his like the thing in this scene that frustrates you so much about Bill when you're watching it is, at least for me, and this is a movie that kind of can hit differently for everybody depending on what you bring to it and whatnot, but at least for me, as she was talking, I was like, it is so fucking clear, man, that what she wants from you is for you to be jealous because she wants you to prove that you want her.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what she's looking for in this interaction, is like, be jealous, be mad at me for flirting with another man because it's hot to me when you're jealous, because that's how I know that like you desire me, that like the spark is still alive, right? And he's being such a fucking like intellectual little dick about this, where he's like, well, I know that you would never compromise, you know, me and our daughter. And by the way, women aren't even actually like that. Like, women don't get horny, so you can't fool me, right? And she's getting so pissed off at him. And I'm like, yeah, it's because she's telling you, she is serving up what she wants on a platter, basically being like, I want you to be mad. And to grab me and let me know that I belong to you, right? I want you to like be possessive and be jealous about me. And he like won't. He's like not engaging with it. And so then she's like, okay, you fucking, I'm gonna hurt you then.
Yeah. Well, and she calls him out about you know, his female patients, and like, I love this line where she's like, so when you're squeezing her little titties, does Bill's dicky get hard? It's so fucking funny.
That line delivery is genius. Nicole Kidman is playing 4-dimensional chess in this movie.
Oh, is she? I mean, like, it's so
she's so
key to her character that she has to be like a strong, partially a strong woman standing up for herself and standing up for her relationship and her integrity, also being unrelentingly cruel to Tom Cruise, and also ultimately be right.
Yes.
And have the audience be on her side.
Yeah.
Throughout all of Tom Cruise's night-long escapades in this film.
Yeah.
Which she is absent from. She's absent from a good portion of this movie.
Yeah.
And yet she's sort of the heart of the film.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it is like, it's sort of that thing where it's like, yeah, like she's like, okay, you won't engage with me in the way that I wanted you to. Like, now I'm going to like, okay, I'm dragging you down to my level now, right? Because you're like trying to be all fucking, you're trying to pontificate on me about men be like and women be like. And she's like, guess what? I get horny and I want to fuck. And sometimes I get horny about people that aren't you, right? And it like breaks his brain.
Yeah.
Which is such a good thing. It's like, it's the fact that what is the engine for his character for the entire movie is basically like, this guy cannot accept that his wife has sexual desires and sexual autonomy, right? It's like it breaks his entire worldview.
Yeah.
That she gets horny.
And this fantasy that she has about this naval officer where she was like, and I think part of this, some of this stuff she is saying to try to hurt him. And rile him up.
Because he wasn't being any fun.
Yeah. It was like, I was ready to leave my life and leave our daughter for this guy if he wanted to. It's all a fantasy, and he fixates on that so much while spending a night-long adventure of trying to figure out if he's going to cheat on his wife for real or not.
Right.
And somehow her fantasy to him is the more like grievous violation.
Yes. It's like, well, and I think that's kind of the core thing with this movie.
Yeah.
Is I kind of think that she's hornier than him, right? I kind of think that like that in their relationship, he, as a guy who has internalized toxic masculinity and misogyny, right? He's like, men are the horny ones. They're the ones that desire sex. Women don't, right? And that's how the world is. And then she describes this really intense sexual desire that she had for another man. And also in that conversation is like, don't you ever get horny when you're like touching one of your patient's boobs? And he's like, he says no. And you as the viewer believe him, right? It seems like he's telling the truth, where he's like, no, that's when I'm working and I don't think about that while I'm working.
Right.
And it seems honest, the place that it's coming from him. And I think kind of the key thing that drives him for the rest of this movie is he has not only had his view of his relationship flipped on its head, he's had his view of the sexual dynamics between men and women completely flipped on its head. And like, he stops understanding how the world works after this conversation, because he was so fully ingrained in like, men are the horny ones, women aren't, right? That when his wife basically proves to him in this argument that not only does she get horny, but she is hornier than him by nature, right? Like, he is the one who desires sex less in his relationship. And he kind of spends the rest of the movie trying to fix himself.
Yeah.
And being like, well, why am I not hornier? Like, why don't I want to fuck as much as my wife wants to fuck? Is kind of his problem for the rest of the movie. And that's such a genius way to attack sort of the sexual dynamic between men and women that has been like established and like propped up by patriarchal society, is just like by going at it from this angle where it's like, what if this guy feels inadequate, not because anything his wife actually did, but because she has carnal desires that he doesn't have, right? And like, I just love how much it fucks him up. It's a really, really good choice for the movie.
Yeah, what they really need to do is sit down and have a conversation.
Which ultimately is the thing
They just
that
need to talk.
resolves it, right?
Yeah.
The thing that is the resolution at the end of the movie, not to fucking skip around too much, but like,
It's okay. We've been talking for a long time.
yeah.
And we're still at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. It's fine. By the second hour of this podcast, we will actually talk about the orgy. Yeah, so like the thing ultimately at the end of the movie that kind of brings them back together is him saying, I'll tell you everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, that's the moment where it's like, okay, and now like Their relationship has been damaged. They've gone through the ringer, but they end up here together, right? Because he finally just talks to her about it. It's like the moral of this movie is the moral of many, many pieces of art, which is talk to your wife. so many plots in so many films, stage plays, books, whatever, could be so easily resolved if that motherfucker would just talk to his wife.
Yeah, but then the movie would be 30 minutes long.
It would be boring if he just talked to his wife.
Right.
He would never go to the cool ass orgy.
Yeah.
If he talked to his wife.
So we've been skipping around a bit. I'm just gonna blow through these next few plot points.
Yeah.
He gets called away because what's her name?
Marion.
Her father dies.
Her father was one of his patients.
He comes to see him. She makes this confession about being in love with him.
Such a good scene. This actress fucking nails this scene. It's so fucking.
And then her fiance, I think it's her fiance, shows up.
Yes.
And he's just like a little fucking nerd, and I love that too. And then Tom Cruise just starts walking the streets of New York.
Yeah. And kind of the thing that has sent him out onto this night of self-exploration.
Yeah.
Right. Is the double whammy of the convo with Nicole Kidman and this woman throwing herself at him.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, but between these two things, he's basically what he's thinking is like, do I need to have an affair? Like, like, will that fix me? Will I be fixed as a man? Right? Will it make me more of a man if I like go out and cheat on my wife?
He's haunted by this self-induced fantasy of his wife sleeping with the naval officer and what that may have looked like.
Yeah.
Which again is not a thing that happened.
No.
But he's still getting worked up about it.
Yep.
Just wanna take a little detour real quick. Is it bad that I laughed when these jocks called Tom Cruise a slur?
They do it so much and so insistently. Like, they are, not only do they call him a slur, they continue to berate him for like 45 uninterrupted seconds. Where I'm like, what the fuck did he do to you? Like, holy shit.
See, I'm sort of like, yeah, he kind of deserves it at this point.
But all that's to say, like, I was kind of laughing too, because it's one of these moments. This movie is very dreamlike. I think this movie is not supposed to be viewed as literal reality most of the time.
Sure.
And this scene with these street toughs, seeing Tom Cruise, who just looks regular, he's just dressed normal, and pushing him off the sidewalk and calling him a bunch of homophobic slurs and like fucking just berating him nonstop for like a long period of time does kind of feel like Lynchian. Like, it feels kind of dreamlike and like it's from another world, because it's like in no real life scenario does this happen. Like, even if a guy bumps into you on the sidewalk and calls you a fucking name or something, the interaction ends and like you move on. But these guys stop and continue emasculating him aggressively.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like he's trapped in a nightmare of his own sort of emasculation, right? And so I kind of think you're seeing like his view of this interaction, which instead of it being like, watch where you're walking, asshole, or whatever, it's like, oh, look at this fucking F slur, like, right? Yeah.
It's just fun watching these guys all collectively decide, you know what? That guy? Fuck that guy in particular.
You know what? Fuck Tom Cruise exactly. Fuck Bill Hart. Oh, you're a fucking doctor? Fucking, you want to fucking stick a thermometer up my ass, you fucking gay ass doctor? It's like, yeah. Anyway.
After this, he runs into a sex worker.
Yes.
And
the most pleasant sex worker ever depicted on film.
And
she is
and
so delightful.
Yeah.
Like, she's so warm. And so kind.
Come to my apartment. It's just, and I mean, this apartment is supposed to look dingy, but I can guarantee this apartment probably costs like $2,500 to rent in New York City.
It is a ground floor apartment, which that's not ideal. But yeah, and
she's also like they're talking about price, and she's like $150, and I'm like, that seems cheap even for $99.
I really. Well, I mean, if you look like Tom Cruise, you might get a little bit of a discount.
Yeah.
Because she's like, this is gonna be fun for me too. Guy looks like fucking 1999 Tom Cruise. Like, but the thing the thing that really tickled me in this scene. So like, we already sort of touched on it. I kind of think this movie is very funny a lot of the time. Like, there's even a thing where like when Stanley Kubrick was working on the drafts of this movie, because it's adapted from a novella. He was trying to determine whether his adaptation was going to be more drama or more comedy, right? And it's like it ended up being more of a drama, but you can kind of feel the comedy in the story that was calling to him in this movie.
Well, and I think part of it is he lets these performances be weird.
Yes. And the weirdness is sometimes unsettling, but it's sometimes quite funny. And one of the things in this scene with the sex worker, Domino is her name.
Yeah.
That made me laugh really hard is she's like, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, what do you recommend?
Yeah.
And she goes, what do I recommend? Because it is such a fucking fun, and it's been sort of this dreamlike experience where you're sort of wandering with him through this dream world where he's being like tempted and tormented and stuff. And this is sort of like a reality shattering moment, right? Where he says this and she's like, what the fuck kind of question is that? Like, what? I'm sorry. I understand that you think you're navigating a dreamscape right now, but like you still have to tell me whether you want me to blow you or not. It's also just a very, very funny to ask a sex worker, like, what's good here? Like they're a server at a fucking Outback Steakhouse? Like, what's your favorite? I'll do one of those.
Maybe they just need like if you show up to the bordello or whatever, they need like stats on the wall.
Yeah.
Domino's head game is ranked a 10.
Yeah.
She's not so good at anal. You know?
Yeah. Now I'm just thinking about like you go to pay for some sex with a sex worker and you're like, by the way, it is my birthday today, so like, and then they like sing you a little birthday song while they're fucking jerking you off or whatever.
I think they should have
like it's a fucking Chili's.
I think they should have loyalty programs.
Like a punch card.
Yeah, I think you should get a punch card.
Your 10th handy is free.
Here's the thing. I think every business should have a punch card.
Yeah.
And every business should have some sort of program where you punch in your phone number and just automatically get savings.
This is why we need to legalize sex work, is so that loyalty programs can really become a thing in the sex work.
I fucking hate when you sign up for a
field.
loyalty program and it's like, yeah, you could punch in your number, but it doesn't take any money off of your order automatically.
It just lets us
It's
send
just
ads to you or whatever.
You can get coupons.
Yeah.
Fuck that shit, man.
Yeah. Domino's loyalty program seems like it would be very generous, though. She seems like she's on the level.
Yeah. He gets a call from his wife, and he lies and says that he's still at Marion's apartment with her dead father.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the thing that like makes him realize that he needs to get out of here.
Right.
I really like him insisting on paying her.
Yes.
Because on the one hand, it's like, oh, he's doing this nice thing, but he's really insistent about it, and she's also not like, and she's like, no, it's fine. Where it's kind of him asserting some sort of power or control over her.
I think it's two things, and I think one of them is Bill Harford. In this entire movie, what he wants is control.
Yeah.
Control over his wife, control over her thoughts and desires, right? Also control over himself, control over his position in society, right? His status, his class. So I do think the control thing is a big part of him insisting that she takes the money. Because that way he gets to be the hero, right?
Yeah.
But then the other piece there is I think it's also a way to absolve himself of guilt, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, I went and saw this sex worker, but we didn't do anything, and I still paid her because I'm such a good guy, right? I think is part of the insistence that she takes the money as well, is that he's just like, I will feel less bad about this. I will feel less guilty. It'll keep me up at night less if she takes the money, right? And yeah, so he makes her take it. And she does seem appreciative, but she's also like, that was really weird. Like, guy came in, asked me what's good here, and then gave me $150 for doing nothing. Although I imagine that's got to be kind of your ideal night as a sex worker. You don't even you get paid and don't even have to do any work.
Yeah.
I love getting paid for not doing work. Anyway,
he goes to the nightclub next, where Nick Nightingale's playing. Stanley Kubrick has a cameo in this scene, but I did not clock him while watching the film.
He must be one of the 8 guests at this jazz club.
I think he's sitting at one of the tables.
It's a really, really cool location, cool introductory shot to this jazz club. The neon sign is lit with the same dreamlike effect that all the Christmas lights are. So it's really bleeding into the frame, and the blue from it is just extending across a lot of the frame. But it's also this red carpeted jazz lounge, and it's just very visually striking. And I like that there's 8 people at this jazz club. It's dead. There's nobody there, and most of them are just single people sitting alone at tables with no partner, just watching this this set. It feels tangibly lonely and empty in a way that really, really suits this part of the movie.
It's kind of
emotionally.
It's sort of Lynchian because it does create that specific vibe for a nightclub that Lynch kind of pulls off in Twin Peaks too.
Right. Where it's this is kind of a place where people are going to self-reflect. Right?
Yeah, it's they're escaping from the rest of the world, and in a way this nightclub itself is totally separate from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
He talks to Nick about the work that he's getting, and Nick says, "I have another gig later tonight at this sex party.
Yeah,
where I have to play blindfolded." And I like the way he talks about there was a time where he could sort of see through the blindfold, and he saw, and the way he talks about it is sort of Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
Where it's just I've seen things you people wouldn't believe,
Yes, but also this is why Nick Nightingale is the fucking best. He says that shit where he's you can't even imagine what these people are up to. It's fucking on another level. And also, you would not believe the fucking racks I have seen. The next thing he says is the women. My God,
titties as far as the eye can see.
It is so funny that it's for a guy like Nick Nightingale,
I'm completely unable to comprehend what I'm seeing, and also a wooga.
Right. For a guy like Nick Nightingale, it's yeah, I don't know. They're fucking doing some kind of weird demonic liturgical ritual, and also, my fucking God, the cans on these women.
Could set a platter on him.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
he's the fucking best. Cruz, who has had his masculinity and his kind of status as a husband and a father and a man challenged this night, right? He hears about this and he's well, I gotta fucking go.
Yeah,
that's where I have to go. I have to up the ante to prove to myself that I can get horny.
Yeah.
Right? That I am worthy of my horny wife. Right, is kind of the deal. And so he's you gotta get me in.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Nightingale's all right, fine.
Because I'm Tom Cruise and I'm charming.
Yeah. It doesn't take much for him to wring this information out of Todd Field. Todd Field's kind of all right, but they're not gonna let you in dressed like that.
Yeah.
So you gotta
it's a masked ball, so he has to get a mask and a costume. He goes to a costume place called Rainbow Fashions that was owned by one of his patients. And we meet Mr. Milich.
Yes, Mr. Milich, the new proprietor of this costume shop, where Tom Cruise needs to get a tuxedo, cloak with a hood, and a mask.
Oh yes, the orgy special.
Yeah. Oh, we at the Rainbow Costume Emporium. We know all of your freaky shit. Let me take you into our room full of all of our freakiest costumes. I clocked you as a pervert the second I saw you.
Yeah. Let me give you access to our pervert stock.
Also, this dude comes to the door and he's he is in. So this is the actor's name is escaping me. But
he's been in things.
He's been in things. I gotta pull it up because this dude looks like the seediest guy immediately. He's like in this like big robe, and he's got like this stringy gray hair and like this like scraggly beard and shit, and he has like this like Eastern European accent, and immediately his vibe is like scuzzy, which then makes the turn with this character like it is one of those things where I'm like, how the fuck did I not see this coming?
I'm glad you brought that up, because
Yeah.
I was debating on whether or not it was time to bring back one of our tried and true bits.
Yeah.
It's time for a Disgusting Shit People News Bulletin.
Yeah. Yeah, that just slid across my desk too.
What
So
what
is
a- what a-
Rade Šerbedžija.
Yeah,
Rade
yeah.
Šerbedžija is the actor's name. And he first of all, every performance in this movie is incredible. I
Mhm.
kind of think this movie is full of wall to wall some of the best acting I have seen in Kubrick's films, which is saying a lot because
Right.
his movies are full of great acting, right? And even though I haven't seen a lot of his films, it is kind of a thing that I always appreciate about his films is that he is, and there's a lot of lore out there about Kubrick being very exacting and very like kind of lording over his actors in a dictatorial way. And there's like some truth to that, but also there's a lot of accounts from actors being like, no, he's great to work with. Like,
Right.
He's a sweetheart, right? And I kind of think what you get in this movie and in other movies is just like a guy who understands actors really well and like knows how to get the best shit out of them, even if the actors themselves don't quite understand the process that he is using, right? But so like wall to wall, great performances. Rade Šerbedžija in this movie, he pulls off a thing as a disgusting shit person that I don't think we have seen before, which is he shows up and you're like, this guy is giving me the ick. And then he fully circles it back around and you're like, oh wait, no, he's normal.
Mhm.
And then later you're like, oh no, my first impression was correct.
Yeah, that's why I was a little unsure if he qualified, because
I think he does.
there's a lot of different vibes going on with this guy.
Yeah.
And
You know, I did make the Eastern European accent part of that. And like, while, you know, I'm sure that's problematic that it's like, oh yeah, this guy is Eastern European, ergo he is creep coded. Like that's not what I necessarily want to say, but I do think the movie is sort of like weaponizing that in a way.
and I'm also like, any guy who is woken up in the middle of the night and asked to open their business to a special customer
Yeah.
is probably really desperate for that money, and is maybe not the most savory character to be hanging out with it at midnight.
And I like that
I'm sort of like, it'd be much more normal if he was like, no, fuck off, I'm going back to bed.
And also like when Cruz offers him like the $100 extra, he haggles, right? Which is also, he's like, not only am I open to letting you into my store at fucking 2 a.m. for your weird random costume needs, which are clearly sex related, right? But he's also like, I'm not only am I going to do this, but I'm going to do this and milk more money out of you than you're offering because I can tell you have it.
Mhm.
You know, is kind of his vibe, and I'm just like, ooh man, I love that.
And he's he's desperate.
Yes, yeah, he is.
You know-
So he lets Tom Cruise in, and he's like, "Here are all my costume. You sure you don't want to go to orgy as pirate? I have lots of pirate costume.
Pirate, very fun at orgy.
you can do things with hook hand, you know.
Peg leg. We have peg leg that has dildo on end.
And so he's like, he's showing Cruz around. He's doing all this shtick. This scene was making me laugh a lot. He's doing the shtick where he's like, "You are a doctor. I have bald spot. Maybe you can fix, no? Make my hair come back. I'm rocking skullet." But
He is crushing the skullet.
he looks really good on him.
He looks like a fucking Russian mobster in a John Wick movie.
And he's like, he gives like kind of sweaty vibes too. Like
Yeah.
it's like this guy, it feels like this guy smells weird, you know?
Oh yeah, smell is a huge part of a disgusting shit person.
Yeah. He's just like, and then when to round out the disgusting shit person news bulletin, we can jump forward a little bit, because in this scene he's like, he finds his daughter with these two men where some weird shit is going down, right? He's underage, like very clearly
Yeah.
like teenaged daughter, right? And he's like, you whore, you bring these men into my house, you fuck them, it's disgusting, get out of my sight, you fucking. And then like later on, we see her with the same two guys again when Cruz comes back. And he's like, okay, bye-bye, see you next time. You call me if you ever need anything, you know what I'm saying? And Cruz is like, wait, I thought you were mad at those guys and called the cops. And he's like, yeah, that was the thing, but then we come to arrangement.
We have new arrangement.
And it's like, okay, what this is telling you is that the first time that he catches them, that he quote-unquote catches them with his daughter and Cruz is there, this is a performance for Cruz, where he's that was my read on this 100%, is that like he is performing outrage because he's like, oh my God, I cannot believe I find my daughter fucking these two older men, gross. And then later on he's just like, no, like this is the deal, my side hustle is prostituting my teenage daughter, right? And it's like, and it's the part of the movie where it's kind of like the cold splash of water after like the dreamlike night of craziness, right? Where it's like, no, now we're just showing this world as it actually is. And it's like, and this is horrifying and sad and gross, you know? And that's why he's our disgusting shit person.
This has been a Disgusting Shit People News Bulletin. I want to circle back to your comment about performances because I think you're right. I think every actor in this film delivers incredible work.
Yeah.
And I do want to shout her out. Lily Sobieski,
yes,
playing Mr. Milish's daughter,
who
does not say a word in this film.
Yeah.
And is very clearly underage, but is giving this character this enticing thing to her performance where she's playing up the sexualization of this character very, very well. And even when she like whispers into Tom Cruise's ear, we never find out what that is.
I love that you never learn what she said.
Yeah.
I think that's such a strong choice in the movie. Yeah.
She has a magnetism to her.
Yeah.
That again I think feeds into that dreamlike quality. But also immediately like repulses you to the situation.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think her performance is actually one of the most important ones to delineating the difference between the second act of this movie, which is his night of debauchery, and the third act, which is him kind of coming back down to earth and realizing like the real world consequences of the type of world he's been exploring. Because in this first interaction with her, where the dad, like Mr. Milich, finds her and yells at her and shit, she clings on to Tom Cruise and whispers in his ear and is acting very like seductive toward him. And then later when you see her again and Tom Cruise is like, wait, like I thought you didn't want this going down in your house, and now I'm seeing something totally different. In that scene, she doesn't give off as much of the like seductress thing. She kind of seems like a frightened child in that later scene. And I'm like, that is, and she's doing it all wordlessly. And I'm like, that's fucking genius, that when he is caught up in the sort of erotic adventure of this night that he's going on, he sees this child as like an object of desire. And then later in the cold light of day, where he's like less seduced by this world that he's dipping his toe into, he sees her for what she is, which is a frightened, exploited child.
And Mr. Milich in that point is like holding her tightly to his side and being like, so you ever want to fuck my daughter, just let me know. And he is playing up the more seductive, like, you want a piece of this? Huh? Yeah. Like, I'm not going to say it, but do you want a piece of this?
And she kind of looks like scared and like unsure.
Yeah, she's putting on that same smile, but there is a different color into her performance with that.
Right. Her eyes are kind of like dead and empty.
Yeah.
In that later scene, whereas earlier she kind of has this spark. And it's like, it's just such good acting from her. Like Lily Sobieski fucking crushes a wordless role here, which is like, and it's really important to the movie. Also, like, this makes me think of another thing I wanted to mention about this movie, which is Kubrick's use of close-ups on
Yes.
actors in this movie is so specific and so intentional and so fucking effective.
Yeah.
Anytime there is a close-up on an actor's face, it's almost jarring because this movie doesn't have very many of them. A lot of them are like wide shots when people are interacting. And then when we cut to a close-up, it almost like jerks you out of the like dreamlike quality of the movie and like forces you to confront people's emotions for what they are instead of for like this veneer that he's been painting with, you know? And it's just like, fucking every single time I was just like, oh man, like now I'm looking into this person's eyes and what I'm getting from them is something totally different from what the scene was presenting earlier.
And a lot of these close-ups are long, uninterrupted takes of just these actors acting.
Yeah.
And I think it's so what frees this movie so much is his decision to let the performances be weird and let the actors act, because it just every performance is elevated in these moments. And every time he's focusing on someone, it's important, and it's sort of like you said, sort of jars you out of the rest of the movie. Because he is doing long takes, but he's not doing like the 2001 long takes or the Shining long takes in these really elaborate Steadicam shots. But when he just lets the performance breathe, and Nicole Kidman deliver this, minutes long monologue about her fantasy with the naval officer in a mostly uninterrupted take, it just makes the performances all that more powerful.
And I think it also is very important that the third act of this movie, after the orgy, when he's doing his little detective shit, there's way more close-ups in the third act of this movie than there is in like the first like two-ish hours of it. They're like the everything through the orgy has fewer like straight up camera is in an actor's face than everything that follows that. And I think it's because you're supposed to have some degree of emotional detachment from what's happening in the same way that Bill does for like the early part of the movie. And then when the consequences of sort of the world that Bill has been dabbling with become more clear to him, there's more close-ups of people's faces because the emotion of what this is doing to him and doing to the other people in this world has to come to the surface more, right? He's thinking about the implications of like all of the stuff that he has seen and interacted with. Yeah. And because of that, it's like Kubrick just puts the camera right in the person's face. And it's real good shit.
Yeah. And much has been said, like you mentioned, about his relationship with actors. One thing that Nicole Kidman mentioned in an interview was like, he was talking about how it's so expensive to get a movie made and you spend all this money to only do 4 or 5 takes seems like you're throwing away money. Yeah. So like with a lot of his movies, he did a lot of takes, and eventually, they got to a point where he let the actors just kind of do whatever they wanted to do and try different things. And I don't necessarily know what takes are in the film, like if this is a lot of early stuff or a lot of later stuff. I kind of feel like it's probably a mix of both. Yeah. And that's part of what creates the disorienting, dreamlike, not quite reality atmosphere that this film has.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Orgy time.
Yeah. He gets his costume and he goes to the orgy. I like him showing up to the orgy in the taxi, which ends up being a really bad idea because immediately they clock him as an outsider because he's the one that shows up in a cab instead of a fucking private limo, right? And I love him. The fucking dollar bill thing is bananas.
Oh yeah, what a fucking dickhead insane thing to do.
Where he's like, I'm gonna rip this 100 in half, hand you half of it, and make you wait for me to come out after I presumably fuck my brains out at this orgy, right? And then I'll give you the other half, and you can fucking staple them together.
And the cab driver takes it, and he's
for
sort of
rent or whatever.
What the fuck am I gonna do with this?
I like the cabbie. He's not in the movie very much,
No.
but I like him a lot. Where he's like, okay, all right.
I do like whenever a character in a movie is just here, just trying to do their job, and the fucking protagonist is here to ruin shit for them.
I wonder if the cabbie just like sat in the cab the whole time, or do you think he like started shooting the shit with these like guards at the gate?
Yeah.
Just had a cigarette break with them and was like, oh, so you're a fucking guard at this super exclusive mansion party. What's all that about? Me, usually I drive in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Lower Manhattan a little bit. That's mostly my deal. But no, yeah, you let people into this big old sex party, huh?
Does that have a 401k? You get a 401k for being the door guard at the sex party?
How do you get into the business of doorman for the Illuminati orgy? I've been thinking about a career change.
Orgy scene's the best scene in the movie.
It's yes. It's one of the best scenes in a movie that I've can remember seeing in recent memory. It's fucking incredible.
It's mysterious and
it's alluring, it's scary,
yeah.
It's everything that it needs to be. It's it truly is like a thing where it's like, this movie came out in 1999. It's over 20 years old at this point. 25 years old in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, in 25 years of movies that I've seen that came out after this, I've never seen anything like this. It really kind of is its own thing.
Yeah.
And you can also tell that this had big influence on the things that followed it. I was thinking a lot about the kind of like A24 and Neon school of quote unquote elevated horror, where which is a term I hate but will use for the purposes of this example. I was thinking about stuff like Midsommar, or like the ending, like the last like 5 minutes of Hereditary, shit like that while I was watching this, and just being like, oh yeah, you can tell that this movie had a huge influence on the types of movie that try to be a horror movie that unsettles you and scares you, but in a less primal like jump scare way, and a more like thought-provoking, gets under your skin type of way, by creating an atmosphere of bad vibes, right? And that definitely existed before Eyes Wide Shut, but it's like you can tell the influence that this scene had on movies that try to do that thing.
I was thinking of Resident Evil 4.
I've never played Resident Evil 4.
Because this opening the opening ceremonies, I guess, of the orgy in this big main chamber, with like I guess King Orgy in red, and the women gathered in a circle around him, and this Latin chanting and shit like that. And there's a second there's a second story.
It's like a Romanian liturgy, like a Romanian Orthodox liturgy played in reverse is what it is.
The music in this scene, music throughout the movie is great, but the music in the scene is
so good. And that's Nick Nightingale blindfolded, fucking playing synths.
Yeah. But there's a part in Resident Evil 4 where you come onto like the second floor balcony of a room like this, and there's a priest in red and a bunch of cultists around him in a circle, and I'm like watching this scene, and I'm like, I just want to take out the infinite rocket launcher and blow these guys away.
Yeah, it's it is very intentionally and specifically religious coded. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The red cardinal guy of the orgy has the little incense thing that they use in Catholic Mass and stuff. Everybody is in these freaky masks, but otherwise their attire is like very like monastic. Right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of like Carnival in here too.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably, I think it was inspired by the original text. That this
yeah,
was
the
adapted
novella
from.
I believe takes place during Carnival.
Yeah,
and so everybody's masked for that reason. But yeah,
I like Tom Cruise's mask.
It's a good mask
because it's just eye holes and then lips, but it's a very blank expression. And everyone else in these in this scene, there's a lot of focus on their masks, and they're all strange and weird and distorted.
Yeah, much more monstrous.
Yeah,
and
a lot
less human.
Yeah. So that becomes a performance in a way. Tom Cruise's mask, just seeing his face and mostly his eyes really reacting to all of these sex acts that he's seeing, I thought it was just like a really, really great piece of costuming.
Yeah.
Um,
I also like that of everything that we have said this orgy scene is unsettling, otherworldly, right? A thing that it kind of distinctly and specifically isn't is sexy.
right.
It is very unsexy.
Yeah,
Which
and-
is like, kind of the point.
Yeah,
Right?
that's why I think that that sex scene between Nicole, like it's a very, very brief scene between Cruise and Kidman earlier in the film. That's the hottest thing in the movie.
Yeah. But this is like, it's almost it, and the trappings of religious ceremony are part of this. It's like cold and detached.
Yeah.
And like sort of like it's ritualistic, right? And it feels less like it feels less like sex and more like church, right? Which is like sort of, I think the thing that kind of freaks Tom Cruise out about this experience is how unsexy these people are treating sex, because he's like a guy where like the thing that has brought him to this place this night is his own kind of deconstruction of his relationship with sex, right? And what it's supposed to mean in his relationship. And then he sees these people who are treating sex in a way that is totally foreign to him and like doesn't make any sense. And it's like, that's kind of the thing that like brings him back to reality, is basically like, it's kind of the moment of the movie where he's like, maybe I just need to be normal about this.
Yeah.
Like, because he hasn't been being normal about it. He's been being very weird about his wife's sexual desires.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of shocks him back to like, maybe I need to engage with this in a way that is like healthy and normal and not whatever this is.
And when he's these women, when the orgy starts and the women are sort of start going through the different rooms of the mansion, and he's led away by one of them, who we're meant to infer is Marion,
Mandy.
Mandy, yes,
Yes, the one
not
who
Marion,
overdosed.
Mandy.
Yeah.
Too many M names. Sorry. Voiced by Cate Blanchett,
Yes.
who does a great job of the voice performance.
Yes. And also I believe, I could be wrong about this, so fact checkers out there, you can get on me about this, but I believe that the woman who does the physical performance of this like fully nude woman with the mask is neither the actress who plays Mandy in the earlier scene or the body on the slab later.
Yeah.
Which again is just like kind of a very fun thing where it's like, yeah, just interpret that however you want.
She but once she starts realizing like you don't belong here.
Yeah.
She's explaining to him, you don't belong here. You're in danger. You should leave. He's still trying to put on he's still trying to embrace this. Like he's sort of cautiously like trying to go along with it, but you can feel that he's not comfortable here.
Yeah, but he's still trying to convince himself that he wants to belong there.
Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of people fucking and sucking. Watch the movie.
Yeah.
We're not gonna talk about it. Table guy's having the time of his life.
Yeah, we already talked about Table Guy, and we already talked about the guy going down on a lady with a mask just fully on his face. And there's some other shit happening.
Yeah. Eventually he gets called out and called into the main the main orgy room.
They're like, "Hey, sir, are you the one with the taxi waiting outside?" And he's like, "Well, yes, I am." And they're like, "Your driver wants to speak with you. Come right this way into the ambush room." Because they bring him like the pretense of like, your cabbie's at the gate.
Yeah.
He's got some words for you. And they lead him into this room, which is, this movie is very dreamlike. This specific shot is like something straight out of just a full-on nightmare, where it's like you walk into a room at a party that you're not supposed to be at, and every single fucking person at the party is in this room staring directly at you. It's so scary. It's really, really scary for him to walk in and just everybody's eyes are on him. And then he's got to fucking try and play it
now
cool.
we will point and laugh at you and give you a dunce cap
And they do
and call you a little bitch.
They do eventually tell him to get naked, which is also a thing that would happen in that kind of nightmare.
Yeah.
Where it's like, now we're all going to laugh at your little cock.
There is a guy who seems to recognize who he is throughout the scene.
It's implied that might be Sidney Pollack's character,
Right.
but it also might not be.
Right.
You know?
And I think that's great.
Yeah.
I like even at the beginning when they're doing the main, like the opening ritual or whatever. The masked figure nods at him in a very like, good to see you sort of way. And then you can tell Cruz sort of nervously like, I guess I'm supposed to return the nod?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's doing some good eye acting there.
Yeah.
Where he's like, what the fuck do I... Okay. Nice to see you too, orgy friend.
Great day at the orgy. Great orgy as per usual. Because I am a known frequenter of the orgies.
I, as you all know, have been to an orgy before. Yeah. And then, so here, they start kind of interrogating him.
Yeah.
And being like, hey, like, what's your whole deal? Like, yeah, you know the password. Do you know the password to the house? And there is no password to the house, as we already alluded to. This is a trap. And he's like, I forgot it. And they're like, well, unfortunately, that means that we're going to kill you. And then the lady who warned him before that he shouldn't be there and should get the fuck out of there, from the balcony is like, hold on. As we all know, according to ancient orgy law, I can substitute myself in his place and allow him to walk free. Right? I love
the orgy code are more guidelines than actual rules.
I love, yes, she invokes the right of orgy parlay. I really like the punch zoom on her when she,
man,
it's such a good punch zoom.
It's so good.
It's, yeah, because the camera has been very kind of ethereally floating around this orgy party until this point. And by the way, the music at the orgy is fucking going insane.
Yeah.
The soundtrack is incredible here. Which I did have a thought about that. The first time we hear the really unsettling piano motif in the movie is, I think the first time you hear it is when he is on orgy trial. he's being tried by the orgy tribunal. And it's that sharp, like, doom, like the high note on the piano. And then it continues, like, throughout the scene. I couldn't help but think, is Nick Nightingale still blindfolded and playing the piano? Is that him? Is it diegetic music where he's playing the little unsettling piano motif as his homie is fucking fighting for his life out there? Because you know Nick Nightingale, if he's still sitting at the piano and is playing, he knows that the guy who is being outed for being an imposter at this party is for sure the dude that he brought in.
I think we see him being let out.
Oh, okay.
We see him being guided out by two guards, and he still has a blindfold around him. But it would be very funny if Nick Nightingale was like, time to soundtrack the orgy trial.
I couldn't help but thinking, like, is Nick Nightingale just playing the piano being like, I just got that guy killed. I invited him to the orgy. Now he's gonna get fucking iced.
You know, I've been working on.
I just gotta keep playing this fucking piano.
I've been working on this little 5-note motif. In the case that there's an orgy trial, hasn't come up yet. It's been a while. Maybe I should bust it out.
Now time for me to
see what King Orangey thinks.
Time for me to pull this out and also try not to think about how I just got my old college buddy fucking murdered.
She's like, accept me as a sacrifice. They lead her away.
Yes, I will be redeemed for him, which is like, this movie is also very well written.
Yeah.
Just some of the like weird, obtuse shit that people say in this movie, like I'll be redeemed for him. It's just such a specific way to phrase her kind of like stepping in and receiving his punishment. It's it's all good shit.
Yeah. And then we cut to him coming home. We don't see how he leaves. We don't see how he gets home, which I think is a really, really masterful piece of editing.
Yeah, I agree. Presumably he gives that cabbie the other half of that hundo, though. He better. Otherwise he'll have some fucking New York City taxi union reps knocking on his door. Breaking his fucking kneecaps. So then he comes in, he hides his costumes, and then like goes to bed. And this is where we kind of get the second moment of Nicole Kidman just blowing a hole in this dude's idea of himself, right? Because the first time is her fantasy about the naval officer, and then he comes home from his wild night, and she's laughing in her sleep, and he wakes her up, and she's like, I had this horrible dream where I was being fucked by all of these men in front of you and we were all laughing at you. Which it's like, what a fucking nightmare as a husband. Like, that is, I understand him sort of being broken by this. The earlier thing with the naval officer, I'm kind of like, you're overreacting, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just need to like chill out and be like, so you had a fantasy about another man. You're human, right? You have sexual desires. I get it. This one, I'm like, that would kind of fuck me up.
I mean,
if High Priestess Pod was like, I had a dream where I was fucking a ton of dudes and everyone was laughing at you, I'd be like, I maybe need to take 24 to 48 hours to just not think about this at all, and then I can be normal.
No, I get that. I've had dreams about things that I thought I got over.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and I'm like, wow, that really fucked me up. Maybe I still need to work through this.
Yeah. But to her credit as a character, I keep calling her Nicole Kidman because I don't remember
Alice. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To her credit as a character, Alice does seem legitimately upset and disturbed by this dream, right? She's not like, oh, it was a great dream. It was an awesome dream where I was fucking all these dudes and we were laughing at you and you're such a pathetic little cuck. Like her attitude is much more like, it was a horrible nightmare. I didn't like dreaming this, right? But here's what happened. And his reaction is basically like, my wife still wants to fuck other dudes, right? But it's like, it is interesting that it's presented that way for her, where it's kind of like the fantasy that she is interested in, the sort of sexual fantasies that she has, like they have a limit, and like in her dreams when they cross that limit, it's also unpleasant for her. It's not only unpleasant for him, right? And there's like stuff in there about how like, yeah, like sometimes like your brain goes places that you can't keep it from going, but like you don't like it, you know? Which I think is a thing that this movie is kind of a level that this movie is operating on, is it's like, not only are sexual fantasies normal and something that everyone, even well-respected members of society with families and kids and stuff have, but also like you can't really control your sexual fantasies. And sometimes they're things that you would rather not have. And, like, that's also normal and okay.
Yeah.
You know?
What I also like about this moment is when she is still asleep and just laughing and he comes in, you, as the audience, already know that she's laughing about him in her sleep.
Yes.
And it's the final indignity because from his perspective, he's like, I've been on this... I've taken this great journey tonight.
Do you know how many women I could have fucked tonight?
And
I didn't fuck any of them, but I could have fucked a lot of women.
Including a child. Like, at the one point, fucking a child was sort of on the table. It's been a hell of a night.
Yes, don't laugh at me in your sleep. Do you have any idea the amount of pussy I could have potentially, hypothetically had tonight?
But it's like he goes on this, he's like, I go on this whole journey, and I've learned nothing from it.
Yeah.
Let me come home where things are normal. And then it's like, he's sort of back where he started again.
Right.
Which is the thing about this movie. It sort of feels like an Ouroboros eating its own tail.
Yeah. I kind of think that's the point.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, and this goes into an element of the movie that we haven't really talked about, but is kind of the biggest thematic level that it's operating on, which it's like being in a relationship with someone, being in a romantic relationship with someone is inherently both like frightening, because you are placing a tremendous amount of power and control over your life into somebody else's hands, right? And also, like, paired with that, it's like that other person is always inherently unknowable to you.
Mm.
You can know so much about another person. You will never know everything about them. You can't, like, climb into their brain and explore their thoughts, right? And so it's like, I think one of the reasons that the movie's kind of like cyclical with Tom Cruise's character is because it's like, yeah, that's kind of what it's like being in a long-term relationship with someone, is being like, I know this person inside and out. I know everything about them. and then you learn something that you didn't previously know about them, or they surprise you in some way, like something comes out of left field and it like breaks your reality, and you're like, do I know this person at all? Like, do I know myself? Like, what the fuck is going on? And then like things get normal again, and it happens again. And like that's part of like the mystery and adventure of being with a long-term partner, and it's part of what makes it worth it, but it also like makes it frightening that it's like, oh, like shit, like this, no matter how much we're on the same page, we're on the same level, we know everything about each other, you're still another consciousness that I can't like grab and control, you know?
It's sort of like that time where suddenly you and your wife were having a funeral for a discarded beauty product, like a burial at sea. And I sort of had to restructure my entire perception of you as a human being.
I'm not going to explain that further on Mike. That's all the context our listeners are going to get.
You
about
can also
this.
edit it out if you like, but I was just
no, I'm going to leave it in.
That...
and people can just speculate on what the fuck that means.
I'm sitting in their living room. Music starts playing on their speaker.
Specifically, "My Heart Will Go On" by
Oh,
Celine
okay.
Dion.
It was "My Heart Will Go On." I forgot that. And Justus's wife, the Podmaster, High Priestess Pod, runs into the living room holding an empty makeup container,
skincare product,
product or something. They open up the drawer where the trash can is, and they both salute it and drop it in the trash can. Anyway,
aren't you glad that you're our friend?
Yes, it's a joy and a pleasure every day.
So yeah, and that's kind of weirdly a good illustration of like the thing that I was talking about. Because I kind of think part of what this movie is about is it's like being in a long-term relationship with someone is kind of like when things are good, right? It is like they keep you stable, they keep you solid, right? And when one person or the other person is going through some shit, sometimes your partner can make you fucking go insane.
Yeah.
Right? And not like go insane in a way that is antagonistic to them, but it's like you're kind of like a hive mind. You're kind of like a combined entity with your long-term partner. And it's like, yeah, sometimes it's like a mind virus will appear in the relationship. In our case, it is, what if we did funerals every time a skincare product runs out? and in Alice and Bill's case, it's like, what if we wanted to fuck other people? You know, basically the same thing.
Sure, I guess.
But yeah, it's like, no, yeah, sometimes your partner going through some shit can like temporarily make you go fucking crazy. Yeah.
So we're in the third act of the movie.
Yeah.
It's the next day. We can kind of breeze through some of this stuff to get to the end.
Yeah.
But we do have to hone in on Alan Cumming.
He's fucking so good in this movie. He fucking gobbles up this scene that he is in. He fucking takes this scene, spreads it across some nice like fucking brioche toast, and makes a meal out of it. It is
He's so
gorgeous.
Good. He's so fucking good.
I love him. He wants to fuck the shit out of Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Immediately when he sees him. And Tom Cruise is like, hey, like, because he basically finds out that Nick Nightingale has been staying at this hotel, and Alan Cumming's working at the desk at the hotel. And so he's coming there for information. And Alan Cumming's like, well, Nick Nightingale, like, he's not here anymore. And he starts describing this thing that happened. And it's one of the funniest fucking scenes of the movie, because the entire time Alan Cumming is delivering every single line like he is just telling Tom Cruise all of the ways that he would like to explore his body.
He's just giggling after every sentence.
And what he's actually saying is, I saw a guy get abducted by two huge dudes, and he's probably dead now. Like, what his story chalks up to is, I saw a man get kidnapped right in front of my eyes. But the way he delivers it is like, yeah, so like, he came in here with like two really big guys.
I mean,
And
big guys.
and one of them went up to the room with him, and the other one stayed down here in the lobby. And then when they came down, he tried to pass me a note, but the guys wouldn't let him hand it to me. And they said that if any mail came for him, someone who is authorized to represent him would be bringing it. So, can I suck your cock now? And it's a masterclass. It's so fucking good. 'Cause like the cognitive dissonance of the scene is what makes it so funny. 'Cause it's like, no, like clearly you are describing being witness to a crime.
Yeah. if this were a character in if this was a scene out of Twin Peaks, this character would have his own fandom and fan t-shirts, and people would be dressing up as him at Twin Peaks parties.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He rocks so hard. I love him so much.
We get the scene with Milich, and
Which
the
we
new
pretty much already
arrangement.
talked about. Yeah.
And he finds out that he goes back to Domino's apartment.
Yeah.
The sex worker.
Yeah.
Finds out from her roommate, another sex worker, that she contracted HIV.
This is maybe my second favorite scene in the entire movie.
Okay.
I love the orgy scene. I really like this scene because this is sort of the scene. As I was watching this movie, because this was the first time I had ever seen this movie, I knew some stuff about this movie, but I didn't really know the plot of it. And I kind of didn't know where the movie was going at this point because I had heard stuff about the orgy scene.
Right.
Right? And the orgy scene's already happened at this point.
We still have an hour left of movie by the time that the orgy's over.
Yeah. And when he goes to Domino's apartment, it was kind of the moment that it sunk in for me what the movie was doing, right? Which it's like, we've presented this kind of dream world where this man is kind of navigating this, kind of in some ways like Greek epic of his own self-discovery, right? He's going on a quest to discover himself through the orgy scene. And then it's like this scene with Sally in Domino's apartment is kind of like Odysseus coming back home and seeing how the world has and hasn't changed while he was on his quest, because it's like he sits down first he comes into this apartment and Sally also wants to fuck him immediately. And it's the same thing where and this is what I was talking about before, where it's like the moment where the character of Bill almost becomes self-aware in his own story and is like, does every single person I interact with want to fuck me?
Because she's like, oh, you're Bill.
Yeah. And she's like, Domino said you were so nice to her and all that. And he kind of tries. And then she's like, I have to tell you something. And he sits down kind of thinking this is another stop on my dream quest. This is another magical encounter for me to have and learn something about myself. And instead what she says is she has HIV. Domino has HIV. Right? And it is such a moment where it's like the movie unambiguously is like, playtime's over. The dream is over.
Yeah.
You are awake now. And the reality of the world is if you fucking go around and fuck random strangers, there are risks and consequences to that. It's not all fantasy, because until this point it's all been fantasy. And then he's confronted with a reality, which is no, yeah, you have to be careful. You can't just go through this world taking. You have to be a conscientious participant in this world if that's what you're gonna do, because otherwise you end up hurting people. And it's I can't really articulate it better than that, but just this scene landed for me really, really hard, and it kind of made me realize what the movie was doing for me. And it was the moment where I was like, I'm not just watching a good movie, I'm watching a movie that I think is really connecting with me on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's for me, that's the second scene with Milich and his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the cold light of day. The dream is over. And last night didn't even happen. There were an entirely different person, an entirely different people were part of last night.
Yeah.
And it sort of sunk into me that like Kubrick was really doing something special with this film.
Yeah.
And doing something different, and I think kind of profound. Which we'll talk about when we get to our verdicts.
Yeah. But yeah, so
I'm glad you like that scene so much. It wasn't one that I focused on as heavily, but
Yeah.
thanks for talking about it.
and I do think the actress who plays Sally in that scene also really fucking good.
Yeah, really good. He goes to the mansion and gets a note that basically is like, stop poking around, fuck off, we're not going to warn you again.
Yes. Do you want to die? Because you could have died last night. And I like that he sort of takes the note seriously, because he doesn't really do any more investigating after that.
I like that it's typed too.
Yeah.
It's not handwritten. It's like they had this prepared, or someone was like, someone's sitting at their computer and they get a call from the front desk, the front gate. It's like, fucking Tom Cruise is here again. What should I send to him?
Yeah.
All right, hold on a second. Let me open up a Microsoft Word document.
Right, let me fucking boot up Windows 98.
Let me think. Fuck it. Yeah, we'll just Times New Roman, 12-point font. Forget it. Whatever.
Yeah. And the guy who hands him the thing through the gate is like so creepy and unsettling. It's like a very like weird, like kind of intangibly threatening moment from him, where it's like, this guy's not gonna pull out a gun and shoot him, but there's just something scary about him. It's good shit.
He finds out that Mandy died.
Yes.
And he goes to the hospital and sees her body at the morgue.
Yeah, he finds out by buying a newspaper and seeing it in the paper. The scene where he's buying the paper and being followed by the creepy bald guy.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
And that's
and
one of
the paper that he picks up, it's like the New York Post or something, and the headline on the front is "Lucky to be alive."
Yes.
In big block letters.
Yes. Which I really like.
Yeah.
And then the when the bald guy's following him at the newsstand, we get what happens a couple more times in the rest of the runtime in this movie, which is the piano motif coming back and being used as a musical jump scare, which I really like. It's like it'll be really tense, like long held shots on like Tom Cruise like crossing a street, and he's like, this guy's following him, and he goes up to the newsstand and he's like looking over his shoulder, and then the fucking first note of that piano motif hits, and it is so loud in the mix. If you have the movie's volume up to a point where you can hear the dialogue, this piano sting is like deafening because it's so much louder than the volume that anyone speaks. Yeah. And it's like right then the guy like walks out from behind the building, and it's like so much scarier than a jump scare in most horror movies.
Well, and a lot of the music in this film is classical music.
Yeah.
Like pre-existing classical pieces. So hearing just like this starkly recorded bare piano at a slightly higher volume than the classical pieces. The first time you hear that note, it immediately lets you know that this piece of music is different.
Yeah.
And it's highlighting different moments in the movie than the classical music is.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, he finds out that Mandy is dead, and he so he has been walking around town flashing
I'm a doctor. Trust me, I'm a doctor.
Flashing this fucking doctor, this New York State Medical Board card like it is a fucking homicide detective badge. And I'm like, in no world, motherfucker, is that getting you any additional information, except when he uses it to get into the morgue at the hospital. I'm like, that one I buy. But when he's like flashing it to like the waitress at the diner and fucking Alan Cumming, I'm like, fuck off. I don't care how many years of school you did to get your MD. I'm not telling you shit. But yeah, so he flashes his doctor badge at the hospital and is like, let me see that dead broad. And then another great scene where he's just in the morgue. The nurse like wheels her out of the fridge, and she's just like on the slab, and he like almost makes out with this corpse. Which it's like, it's good. It's I like that there's a moment where he kind of like leans over this body and he's like drawn to it. And there's like this moment where it's like, what do I do? Like, she saved my life. I don't know who she is. She's a sex object. She's also a person. And he's like reckoning with all that. And he like leans down like he's gonna kiss her. And then he doesn't. And it's just, there's so much loaded stuff thematically in that whole moment that I think like the point of it is basically like Kubrick's just trying to send your mind in a million directions.
Right. And there's lots of different types of nudity in this movie. And you know, this is one of them where he's wheeling out this fully nude woman, and now seeing her naked body dead is different than seeing her naked body at the orgy.
Yeah.
Which is also different than seeing her naked body ODing.
Right. Right. Which is maybe why he used different actresses for each time.
Right.
Right.
Because there is like, again, it's the eroticism of the film. There are moments in this movie that are sexual but not sexy.
Yeah.
And I think that translates to the nudity too.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So now we get the scene with Sidney Pollack.
Yeah. Victor basically summons him to his house
Mhm.
and is like, I want to talk to you about something. And pretty soon, Sidney Pollack lets him know, like, hey, the jig's up. I know you were at that orgy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's loose so that, like, there was no second password, that we didn't do anything to that woman. I think he says, like, we took her into the next room and fucked her brains out. That's what happened.
Right. Yep.
And it is so just like chilling and mysterious. And again, like, I kind of believe everything that he's saying.
Yeah.
The way he's just like mindlessly playing with the pool balls as he's delivering this to Tom Cruise.
Yeah. And I really like the only time in the scene that he gets really frustrated, that his temperature rises at all, is when Tom Cruise kind of tries to be mysterious and to obfuscate some facts himself.
Mm-hmm.
And like the one moment that Sidney Pollack like raises his voice is he's like, no more fucking bullshit. Like, just like, we're gonna tell each other the truth, right? Because it's like the one thing that this guy who is like this rich, powerful fucking Illuminati sex cultist cannot tolerate is like someone else keeping secrets from him.
Yeah.
Right? It's such a good commentary on like class and power and all that shit in this scene.
It's like, you know, we knew that fucking Joker Nightingale let you in. He doesn't say, I don't think, whatever he says, but he has some kind of like.
I love his tirade about Nightingale. He does get a little heated there too, because one of the things that burns him so bad is he's like, and I fucking recommended that prick.
Yeah.
And I looked like an asshole in front of the guys, right? Is like the thing that he takes away from this. And like Nick Nightingale, like they're like, Tom Cruise is like, you know, that the hotel clerk said that he had a black eye. And Sidney Pollack's like, so he had a black eye. We roughed him up a little bit. He deserved worse. We put him on a plane back to Washington. And that's one of those moments where I'm like, you believe it, you buy it. Also, though, my read as a viewer of this film is he is lying. That's bullshit. Nick Nightingale is fucking dead. Is like kind of my stance on it. And so it's like, so it tells you so much about Sidney Pollack, right? One, that he won't fess up to this in front of Bill. But number two, that even if he knows that this guy was fucking whacked for like letting somebody else into the Illuminati orgy, the thing that burns him the most about it is not this man's death. It's like, he made me look like an idiot. Like, he made me look like an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, the loss of status to him is like more important than a human life, you know?
Yeah, the orgy was really cool until Nick showed up.
That fucking prick piano
Just ruined the orgy. But even still, like, stuff like, and again, it's like, I think it's really interesting what feels true and what doesn't in this scene, where he's like, yeah, we found the fucking receipt for the costume shop in your coat when we took your coat. Like, yeah, seems like something that fucking Bill Hartford would forget to do. Yeah,
because believe it or not, no matter how much he flashes that doctor's license, he's not a detective.
Yeah, it's a great scene, and it's sort of the we think of the the orgy is like the climax of the film.
This is
'Cause it
really
so exciting. But
that's
like,
yeah, right. That's maybe like the kind of visual and atmospheric climax. This is like the narrative climax. Is the scene with Sidney Pollack.
oh
Yeah.
Oh, one thing we should mention about when he returns the costume to Milish and sees his daughter, he doesn't have the mask with him, and he thinks he's misplaced the mask.
Yeah.
He comes home after talking to Sidney Pollack and sees the mask laying next to Nicole Kidman on the bed.
I love that there are two very specific ways that you can interpret that moment, and
Yes.
the movie gives you equal credence for either one, which is either he was lying about losing the mask when he returned the costume to Milic, and he was holding on to it as a token, as a souvenir of his night of debauchery, right? And Nicole Kidman found it, and that's why it's on the pillow, is because she basically found this weird thing, and she was like, I'm going to talk to him about this, and then took a little nap, right? That's one reading, is like she has discovered kind of his infidelities, his fantasy stepping out in his own way that he's been doing. Or he truly did lose the mask and someone else has placed it there as a threat, right? And I like that his reaction to it doesn't tell you which one of those things it is.
And I think there's also an implication that she was at the party and she knows too.
Yeah. Yep.
And the movie just like
it just doesn't tell you.
Doesn't give you the answers.
Because that's not what the movie's about.
Right.
The movie's not about getting answers to everything. The movie's about like what it makes you think about it and how it makes you feel. Yeah, so he breaks down and this is when he says, I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you everything.
I sort of like that we don't see him confess.
I really like
we
that.
we just cut to the it's like, because this is very clearly like very early in the morning. It's still dark out. And then after he's told her it's daytime at this point, and he's kind of like, so that's the story. And then we look at Nicole Kidman and she is like just visibly distraught and hurt by this news.
Yeah, I like that it's like, I'll tell you everything, and then cut to her looking broken. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Then they go Christmas shopping with their daughter.
You know what I really love in this movie?
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman in tiny glasses.
Oh my God.
Which this last scene
I
has.
haven't. Well, she has tiny glasses at the beginning too.
She does.
There's a scene of her I
love her tiny glasses.
When they're getting dressed in the bathroom, and she has her hair up and it's curly and going everywhere.
Yeah.
And she has the tiny librarian glasses. She looks like fucking Miss Frizzle. And then just this super see-through, I don't know, like negligee undershirt top on as she's getting ready to go to the party at the beginning of this movie. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, what a beautiful woman.
Yeah,
what a beautiful, terrifying woman.
They both look incredible in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Since we bounced all the way back, you know what also kind of fucked me up in this movie?
Yeah.
I was like, I know these people are perverts because Tom Cruise is walking in while Nicole Kidman is actively pissing on this toilet.
Oh yeah.
At the beginning of the movie while they're getting ready for the party. And I was like, that's how I know that these people are fucking sexual deviants, because you know what doesn't happen at all in my home? My wife and I being in the same room while one of us is urinating. Neither of us have ever seen each other pee, and we will never see each other pee.
Yep.
Everybody has their own boundaries in their relationships, and that's one of ours.
I think that's a solid boundary to keep in place.
Anyway,
we don't need to be bringing pee-pee and poo-poo into the relationship.
I completely agree. And if you're into that, if that's your thing, no shame, just not for me. So they take their kid Christmas
shopping. Because it's Christmas movie, yay!
Yeah, it's a very Christmassy movie, and this is a very Christmassy finale.
Yeah,
where it's basically like, now we're presenting the wholesome family view of Christmas, but there's like this dark, weird thing that's bubbling under the surface that we've been sitting in for like 2.5 hours.
I like there's a line that Nicole Kidman delivers to him when they're like, she's off looking for their daughter's off looking for presents. Looking at toys and shit.
I do like in this last scene, which goes on for like a little bit of time, their daughter like wanders away, and then they like have several lines of dialogue, like just a full-on heart-to-heart with each other in this toy aisle, and I'm like, your kid is fucking totally somewhere else. Like,
you guys are really having this conversation in a toy store
Yeah.
on Christmas.
You're really trusting the other people in this toy store to not just like abduct your child while you're fully not paying attention. But yeah.
Let's talk about our sexual escapades that almost broke our relationship.
Yeah.
Next to the stuffed animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like this line that Nicole Kidman gives, which kind of sums up the movie. Is like, she says, maybe we should be grateful that we survived our adventures, whether they were real or a dream.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really matter if it was a real or a dream.
Yeah.
And he's distraught and broken up, and he's like, I don't know what should we do? What should we do? And she's like, the next thing that we should do, and it's very important that we do this.
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. I'm butchering the line.
Yeah.
Fuck. Cut to credits of film directed by Stanley Kubrick.
Yes.
What a fucking mic drop.
Really, really good ending.
Stanley Kubrick ending his life with fuck. Cut to credits.
It is one of the best endings. It is up there with the ending of They Live as one of my favorite.
Oh, really? That's
movie.
Awesome.
I love the ending of They Live. What's the matter, baby? Yeah. Great ending.
I thought you were going to say The Thing.
The Thing also has a great ending. But They Live it's just such a fun.
They Live is fun. It's never been one of my favorite
It's such a funny
endings from Carpenter.
I love it so much.
But I'm glad that you like this. Yeah, I like this
it's
ending
such a good
lot.
ending. Yeah.
It's
Just-
like we've gotten through this thing.
Yeah.
We've come out the other side, and somehow it's reignited that passion in theher relationship that they were missing.
Right. And I kind of think that the ending line is very important to what the movie is saying, which is like, her being like, you know what we need to do now is we need to take everything that we have learned about ourselves and each other, right? And we need to direct that energy into fucking the shit out of each other, right? It's like, you can have your fantasies, I can have my fantasies, and as long as we come together and like come together like we're good, it's like because you're your own person, you're your own consciousness, you have your own shit going on, I'm my own person with my own consciousness and my own shit going on, and like we love each other, so it's like, let's figure out how to bring some of the fantasy shit, let's pull that out of there and direct it into each other, right? And share that and use that.
Let's take it out on each other's bodies.
Yes, for as long as it makes sense to do that,
Yeah.
which is another thing that I like in this scene, which is like Tom Cruise is like, so we're fine like forever. And Nicole Kidman is like, I'm not comfortable with forever, but like, how about right now, right? And that kind of makes him a little sad, but I'm like, ultimately, when you're in a relationship with someone and you're honest with them, that's kind of all you can promise, right? Is because it's like, yes, forever is what I would like. It's aspirational, right? But at the same time, it's like, the world's fucking crazy. I don't know what's going to fucking happen 10 years from now. I don't know who I'm going to be. I don't know who you're going to be 10 years from now. I'm trusting that it's going to be forever. But how about we say, we're going to do this until it makes sense to not do this anymore? And I like the honesty from her in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then it leads into like, what we should do right now is like, fuck.
It's so interesting that I exited this film that is about infidelity and all of these dark emotions of jealousy and rage, misogyny that deals with women as objects to the male gaze, that deals with insecure masculinity, that touches on sex trafficking, the dangers of being a sex worker, all of these dark things. And I came out of the end of this final scene being like, oh, but love triumphs over everything.
Right.
It's sort of wild that he pulled that off.
It is. And I truly think like that's what I took away from it too, is kind of like those crazy kids, I hope they make it, is kind of the ending, the feeling that this movie leaves you with.
Yeah.
Is it's like you're rooting for them. You're like, yeah, like good. Like they're good together and they should keep trying to make this work.
Yeah.
And
maybe continue with the communication. Maybe keep working some things out.
He really
but
does just need to.
You know what? Go off and
talk
fuck
to
each
her.
other. Just go fuck for a little bit. That's fine.
Yeah. No, I do think it's like weirdly sort of heartwarming.
Yeah.
The ending. And that's Eyes Wide Shut.
And that's what Christmas is all about.
That's what Christmas is all about. David, is Eyes Wide Shut directed by Stanley Kubrick? Cruise, Kidman, Kubrick. Is it the greatest movie ever made?
I was wrestling with this hard.
Yeah.
Because this movie does so many things that I like. I love the atmosphere of it. I love films that explore sex and relationships in this way. It's a real bad time at points, but I also just like kind of love sitting in the atmosphere and sitting in this world that this movie creates too, as ugly and emotionally potent as it gets at points. It is a little long.
Yeah.
Which I haven't brought up yet.
Yeah.
And I hate to be that bitch at the end that's like, Stanley Kubrick's made a lot of long movies.
Yes.
And this one feels a little long to me. I would
Yes.
not say that about Shining. I would not say that about 2001.
Yes.
It's a tad long.
I agree with you. Yeah.
And it's also sort of like Crash, a movie that I feel a little frustrated with in terms of its themes. I do love its themes. I love the exploration of the themes. I love that we exit the movie with more questions than we have answers, much like the character. And yet, I'm wondering if I haven't found the answers yet. And that's how I was feeling when I finished watching it last night. It's like, I don't know if I've totally found the answers yet to this movie. And I don't know if that frustrates me or that excites me. Because I don't know if this is a movie that I'm going to come back to in a year again.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm like, what am I going to get out of Eyes Wide Shut in 5 years or 10 years? Or when I have a committed romantic relationship? And then sitting here and talking about it with you, I think we found some of the answers.
Yeah.
Talking about this movie together. It's such a singular piece of art that, yeah, sure, has some comparisons one could make to David Lynch and Possession. But it's also just such a ballsy movie for Kubrick to make and for Kubrick to have as his final send-off, unintentional or not.
Yeah.
I'm sort of blown away by it. And it's a film that I haven't stopped thinking about it since I first watched it. Potentially career best work from Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. He's so good.
Do more movies like this, Tom. You can't be jumping off of cliffs forever.
Yeah. He's such a fucking tightly wound little tense freak in this movie.
Yeah, he's so specific and so intense. Nicole Kidman is incredible in this. It's gorgeous to look at. It's beautiful. The music is such an enrapturing thing to bring you into the world too. Like you hear those few notes of that piano theme, or even some of the classical pieces, and it's just like, oh, it's Eyes Wide Shut. I'm in Eyes Wide Shut right now.
Yeah.
So I was going back and forth. Fuck it, greatest movie ever made. It's rad as hell.
Yeah.
Underappreciated, I think, in the larger scope of Kubrick's other work, although people are saying that it's underappreciated,
right.
So maybe it actually is properly appreciated these days.
Hopefully. It deserves to be.
Heartwarming holiday classic.
But kind of ironically, kind of as a joke, but also kind of not.
Yeah, unwrap the presents and gather the family around the TV set to watch Eyes Wide Shut.
I feel like this would be a really good Christmas Eve movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that is like, you throw this on Christmas Eve, you're a little tipsy, you get your fucking brandy and eggnog or whatever the fuck, and you're just golden, man.
Christmas Eve is the time to do like the sort of transgressive Christmas movies.
Christmas
and then
Eve
Christmas Day is like It's
right.
a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street.
Right. Christmas Eve is like, it's like, okay, well, it's the holidays. I'm thinking about family. I'm thinking about, all of this kind of wholesome stuff, but also like I'm a little horny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a flawed masterpiece, but a flawed masterpiece is still a masterpiece. So yeah, greatest movie ever made.
Nice.
Really enjoyed returning to it. I kind of wish that we would get a crossover between this and Society, and it could be Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut.
I think that'd be rad as fuck.
He just goes to the Illuminati party, and it's like totally the exact same for like the beginning intro ritual
And
sequence.
then there's just a
and then it's
shunting.
and then the tracking shot, it's just everyone shunting. Just that guy's face is coming out of an asshole.
Yeah, but they're still in masks. That connects
a
it back.
masked face is coming
Yeah,
out of an asshole.
that connects it back. Connects it back.
That's awesome.
Maybe the Eyes Wide Shut sex party and the Society sex party, they linked up. They like let's just make a new club.
It's a sequel to both of them.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Justus is Eyes Wide Shut.
Shut. Not
Directed
shut.
by Stanley Kubrick. It's the first time I've said it like Kubrick on this recording.
Yeah.
Starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. The greatest movie ever made.
David, I don't have a ton to add to what you said because I basically agree 100% with everything you said. My main gripe about this movie is also that it is a little bit long. I understand we were going with the very slow talking and the long sequences of no dialogue where it's just kind of you're soaking in the visuals. I understand we were doing that to build atmosphere. It's very effective at doing that. And I think it might have been equally effective if we had done it a little bit less.
Yeah, if this was like a 2 hours 20 instead of 2 hours 40.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just it goes and goes and goes and goes,
Yeah.
and that's fine because what the movie is immersing you in for such a long time is quite compelling and it's very good. And I agree with all the points that you made about it. I also was sort of back and forth on this one, but I wasn't back and forth on it during our record. I was back and forth on it while I was watching it, right? Where early in the movie, I was kind of like, this is very interesting. It's very beautiful to look at. I'm going to be giving this a no in terms of my verdict on the podcast. And then the more the movie went on, I was like, is this a yes? And then I was like, I don't know, like waffling back and forth. And then like the orgy scene happened. And I was like, okay, so yes, this is the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
And then like he starts doing the detective shit, and I was like, oh, maybe we peaked early, and maybe it's a no. And then there's like the second Mr. Milich scene, and the Sally scene with the HIV diagnosis, and the scene in the morgue, and it had me right back up in Yes Town. And the ending of this movie is perfect. It goes out on such a high note. That last conversation between Cruise and Kidman fully synthesizes all of like the themes and shit in the movie and just presents it to you on a beautiful platter and is like, here's a smorgasbord of ideas that you can take away and mull over until the end of time if you want to, that we've put in this movie, right? And it just it gives it to you and just is like, Nicole Kidman says fuck and you walk away from the movie and think about it for the rest of your life is kind of how I feel about this movie. And I'm like, yes, it's the greatest movie ever made because
Okay.
it's like, because Kubrick is so good in the few of his films that I have seen at making a movie like that, where it's like the movie is what it is, and as an object, it is like kind of perfectly constructed. But beyond that, there's kind of a secondary level that all great art operates on, which it's like there's the thing itself, there is what it is, and then there's like how it makes you feel. There's your emotional reaction to it. And he's just such a master at like pulling that shit out of you in his works. And I would say of the movies I've seen from him, like Eyes Wide Shut maybe does it the best. I love The Shining. I kind of feel like there's more that I'm going to be thinking about from one viewing of Eyes Wide Shut than there is from my like umpteen viewings of The Shining.
Right.
You know? And like, so I'm like, yes, like I would say The Shining, I would give The Shining a yes. And because of that, I'm sort of like, I kind of can't give this a no because I kind of think everything that I love about The Shining, this movie maybe does better. You know, I kind of maybe if I was going to rank Kubrick, I might put this at the top of what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, like it's the greatest movie ever made.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut. Great title, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut. Really evocative title. kind of like lets you know what you're in for without being too on the nose about it.
Right, perfect about like representation of the film's themes of like
Yeah.
having secrets out in the open,
Yeah.
ignoring the other person, and just like the mystique and the intrigue of the
Yeah.
film.
Great name for a movie. Great
Great
poster.
fucking movie.
Yeah. Just yeah. He's fucking batting 1,000 on this one.
The
and then he fucking croaked immediately.
The trailers are great too because it does the Cruise Nicole Kubrick or Cruise Kidman Kubrick thing, and it's just music. There's no sound.
Yeah.
And then the title card drops at the end of the trailer, and the movie announcer voice goes, "Eyes wide shut," and that's it.
So good.
Cool. Hey, listeners.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, we know it's a longer one, but it's a long movie.
Yeah. Hopefully we got it down to a more manageable length. Dick joke. Next week, Christmas continues. We're exploring more Christmas films this season. This is going to be our first double feature episode, and it is for a very interesting reason that we will talk about during the podcast. Justus, what are we watching next week?
We are watching Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 and Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. So we'll be doing both of those movies in a single episode.
Yeah. If you only have time for one of them, watch Silent Night, Deadly Night 2.
Garbage Day!
So join us next week for Garbage Day. In the meantime, continue to spread the word about the show. Leave us a review. That would be such a wonderful Christmas present to unwrap this year as a nice review from you lovely listeners.
If you don't want to actually like go through the work of writing a whole bespoke review, just give us 5 stars, and in the review text section just write Fidelio and submit that. That's fine. We'll just take all of the work away. As long as it's a 5-star review with some text in the body, the algorithms will still recognize it.
Yeah,
and help boost our
great.
show.
It's just say we're great, you know. We'll see you guys next week. As always, later dipshits.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Greatest Movie Ever Made. Please remember to leave us a rating and a review, and to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. We appreciate you supporting the show and spreading the word. Tell your friends to listen, tell your enemies to listen, tell your mom to listen. If your neighbor has an unsecured Bluetooth speaker, connect to it and play an episode. You can follow us on social media at TGMEM_podcast. And if you've got a movie that you want us to talk about, send us an email at thegreatestmoviepodcast@gmail.com.